Hello and welcome to episode 206 of The Imperial Truth. I'm Greg. Joining me, as usual, is Mr. Howard.
Hello, Greg. How are you doing?
I'm good. Are you?
Yeah, all right, actually. Feeling pretty
stuff.
positive at the moment. Into just bouts of struggling through and remaining awake, but otherwise, pretty damn good.
All good. Before we go anywhere, Element Games, for everything you need. This episode is not going to be out before 11th edition's released. I did see that they're not holding any copies back. It's first come, first serve, limited numbers. I'm sure there'd be plenty of stuff coming for 40k soon. You can get all that there. I got all my Cities of Sigmar stuff on the Saturday whilst I was away at UK Games Expo, but all turned up. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, they just continue to be like really reliably good.
I thought their communication in particular was good over the 11th edition stuff. I mean,
I think
obviously everyone's pushing it.
Yeah, the one complaint we've had with with Element a couple of times, to be fair and honest and open, was a couple of times when they've had limited stock about how they've dealt with it. But they put it out there nice and early, which is good to see.
Yeah, I thought that was quite clear and straightforward the way they've done that. I mean, as you say, the stores almost handled it slightly differently to the online aspect previous times, but this one was quite straightforward and communicated as such, and I thought that was to be applauded. I thought that was good.
For sure, yeah. We stick with them because I think in general they do things the right way, and they've always been very good. They've always sorted problems. You only have to look at Artithopus and the other things they're involved with to see that they're doing good stuff. So, Element Games, you can go and support us, and by using our link and buying from them, and therefore supporting them. All the usual stuff. I won't go on because we went on last time about supporting the show.
Yeah, please see the notes from last time.
Yeah, or don't. If you skip 30 seconds and 30
that's
seconds,
fine.
That's absolutely fine. We get it. It's all good. Yeah. So, Howard, it's a little bit rushed. There's not a lot of news going on at the moment. Apparently, they're releasing something for 40k. So, yeah, not a lot for the heresy. So we're gonna sort of skip news, except for the pretty big news. John Blanche passed away on the 3rd of June.
Yes,
and what do you say about John Blanche? It's like, I've seen people, when you think about the art for 40k and therefore gaming, because you only have to look across the different game systems to see what people have looked at. Games Workshop, looked at Warhammer because it's been the big boy in the gaming industry for 30 odd years, 40 years, and see the influences / even the influences in trying to get away from it, kind of thing. And then you look at the fact that movies have taken the obvious movie inspirations that have come from it as well. I've seen someone on, what was it? A Father Ted Facebook group. There was a meme put up.
I saw that. Yes.
Yeah. The breadth of the influence of the man is phenomenal, and probably will grow and grow and grow as well. Someone compared him to Geiger as being of a similar kind of import to kind of creating a style in a modern setting. You go back and look at the classics and whatever, and I'm not comparing anyone to anyone, but Grim Dark, John Blanche is the main man behind Grim Dark, and Grim Dark is a thing now. Yeah, wow.
It's a weird one because it's, as often is the case with someone passing away, it causes a great deal more focus than it would have otherwise done. Now, John Blanche had sort of circled back around because he had done a few things, he'd done a few tie-ups and things, and he's
got on guard. Yeah,
exactly. There was a few projects and things going on that meant he was being talked about, and the universal acclaim quite strong. I mean, certainly something I will be doing more so now, given the news and want to reflect on things, is I was going to watch that documentary
Sure.
film that was put out there. It's on Apple TV, I think. And the fact that exists, I think, says a lot. And seeing as well with that news, the way it reached out across a range of platforms that you wouldn't, and news channels and things that you wouldn't have necessarily expected it to. So clearly the influence is enormous, and just sort of makes you take stock a second, I suppose, really. You kind of always wish that it didn't take someone passing away to cause that kind of celebration or otherwise, because then they could enjoy it as well. That would be a nice thing, although they're probably uncomfortable with it. But that's always the strange duality I have with those things.
I do feel that because John's health hadn't been great for a while, there were things going on that celebrated John while he was still here. What I've seen now, obviously, is you get the stories when someone passes away, and someone shared, I can't remember who it was on Instagram, shared a text chat they had where John was like, yeah, the imposter syndrome is real. Why does anyone want to look at any of these things I draw? And it's like, it doesn't matter who you are, that can get you. This guy's had such an influence. And then you look at the really nice ones. I know Holly, blimey, I've done it. I'm doing it again. We're recording too late at night again. Forge World, Holly, artist.
Holly Goodwin.
Holly Goodwin. I was trying to remember which GW legend she was the daughter of. There were too many going through my head. He was talking about when she was young. I think she was a flower girl at his wedding, but she used to be so scared of him because he was a big biker dude, and he ended up buying a key ring and dangling it under the table she was hiding under to win her around, and then she spent the rest of the time sat on his knee and things like that. And everyone kind of, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say a bad word about John. I only met him once at a games day. I walked up to this curious chap, looking at it as very much an artist, and kind of, hi, how you doing? And got the limpest handshake you'll ever likely to have. And then flipped over his portfolio and went, "Oh, you're John Blanche." Kind of didn't say it, but in my head I'm like, I know who you are now. And then it all just fit, how that works.
I love that. I love that the recognition came through the art.
Yeah, I had no idea what he looked like back then. You didn't see John's face that often, relatively. No. And then my only other experience with him was I was at Adepticon X years ago, and Lawrence Blanche added me on Facebook. I was like, what's this all about? And I talked to someone, and they went, "Oh, that's John. That's his real name." I was like, why is he following me? Is it because I say some of his drawing, very flippantly, I've said some of his scribblings of a mad 3-year-old, talking about his concept art, and it's not a derogatory term for me. I don't mean it that way. It was concept art, and I think he's talked about that as well. It's not designed to be an art piece. What it's designed is to, to build on, to show you what the feel and everything else of a thing, and even then, I say it's very flippant from me, which I can only gather he was. I know he added a lot of people on Facebook, which I'm assuming is because his health wasn't great at the time, and it was another way of being in the hobby. I was like, why has he added me? And even now, I'll never know why. I can only assume again that it's because I'm friends with people like Kat and Caleb and Henry South, and people who are in the hobby that way. It allowed me to see some of his posts, which is really cool because he's done some amazing stuff. And as Pratchett says, you have two deaths. Your real death, and then when that is, I'm sure that is Pratchett, as you said that. When the last person remembers you, well, John's going to live a very long time. Because
well said, yeah.
Wow,
goodness
it's not me. I didn't say it.
Well recalled. Well chosen then.
Have you got a favourite piece of John Blanche art?
Oh, that is a question, isn't it?
Yeah,
because you are reminded. I mean, it's very tempting to go with the artworks that kind of got you into the hobby. I mean, I'm looking at the box art, and I mean, it's called relevant because, as you say, the 11th edition's coming around, and there's a nod there to there was an intention for that box and to be a bit of a marker of second edition, which was the edition that got me into the game. So that cover will always be significantly meaningful, as are the epic covers, and seeing a lot of the artwork be reshared, should we say, and celebrated today and yesterday, etc. Seeing, I mean, the Battlefleet Gothic cover as well is another one. You're reminded, like, oh yeah, and then you go into these more obscure pieces, and I suddenly realise what significance those had to me on a double. There's little pieces of the Eldar, like he's got an Eldar Farseer, which I suddenly realised, oh yeah, hang on, this is him and his collaboration with Jez Goodwin, and oh goodness, okay, it's really baked into the DNA. So trying to pick one is nigh impossible. But I mean, that's probably the ones that are the most significant, the ones you're thinking about.
I've just seen one I've never seen before of an Eldar with a curved over the top helmet.
Right.
Farseer, I think.
I think that's the one I'm talking about. I think that's the one that
just the head and shoulders looking sideways in profile. What? I don't think I've ever properly seen that before.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's phenomenal. It suddenly resonant of even earlier than second edition Eldar Codex. It's sort of stuff that's foundational, and you're like, yeah, it's hard to. You couldn't pick out one. It's very difficult to do that.
I think part of the problem is it's just synonymous with 40k to the point where, oh yeah, of course, because it's just ingrained now. So you go and look at Eternity Gate, like magnificent piece.
Good example.
Like, but that's just part of 40k to me. Like, it's just it's you have to remember that there's an artist like there. Obviously, the Emperor on the Golden Throne. Second edition, the Blood Angel cover as well. Sorry, the Black Templar. You've got the Blood Angels and the Black Templar covers.
Yeah.
And then there's like the random one of all the goblins. Some of the Necromunda art as well. Necromunda-esque art. Because some of it's not for Necromunda, but it's very similar.
There's a couple of pieces I'm reminded of. I mean, I think Codex Imperialis, which came in the second edition box set, had some incredible pieces by him. It's probably predominantly by him, with anecdotally. There's a couple of pieces that I remember being that I don't think I realised the impact at the time. I definitely didn't, but I now realise. You type Fortress Monastery into Google and go to image search. There's two pieces there that come up that are what I think of as quintessential Blanche pieces, and those are definitely in that Codex Imperialis, and I think they resonated with me more than I consciously realised, and therefore they are quite significant. There's one with I suppose what you would call a proto battle barge thing sitting above a castle on top of a rock.
Yeah,
it's called labeled Fortress Monastery. There's another where it's clearly a sort of what appears to be a castle, but it's got an enormous laser cannon sticking out of it, and banners are on it, and it's the color palette. It's just it's so potent, and I think we don't quite realize how much it's running through it. Even if that his style fundamentally doesn't shine with you in the way you've got other artists that maybe do, the influence is undeniable.
Oh, big time! Like, it's one of those things. Like, people say there would never be this without that, and what have you, and you can't ever argue those things. But like, he's guided 40k, and and artists working for GW through the whole lot as well. Based on what he's done with his concepts as well, the miniatures are also coming out that way. You only have to look at the models we're getting for the Primarchs now.
Yeah.
And going back to those old images of Magnus and Angron and whatever, and the details are all there. And then I think the thing for me, because I'm not an artist, I don't get art in that way. And I mean, like, how do I mean? Like, I paint by the numbers when I'm painting. I don't. Some people look at a figure and go like, oh yeah, colours and light and shade, and like that's all alien to me.
Mm.
But when I see John paint, when I saw him paint models that looked like his pictures, I was like, I just don't. It's so alien, so like, wow. How do you do that?
Mm.
It's phenomenal. Yeah. I don't know, and I know he got gaming with like the Hate guys, and then the Mordheim group that were doing stuff as well.
Mm.
Yeah, as I say,
Funny old
I
time
didn't.
as well that there are people that are that significant. I mean, I felt this a bit when we saw people like John, and there's a number of others who I would say are significant names, who had a major influence on the development of the hobby that we all collectively get to enjoy. As you see them start to retire, and
Yes.
there is a certain melancholy in that, but then hopefully that gets rechanneled into us celebrating it and rediscovering it and going, actually, yeah, I love this and this is awesome.
Well,
And I've got lots of people who are going to enjoy it with me. That's pretty cool.
Someone posted in the Lord of the Rings game Facebook page. So I know he didn't do any Lord of the Rings stuff. It's like, well, actually, like, it's not just 40k. He was doing other stuff as well. Oh yeah, the ship with the orc flying ship. That he did other stuff as well. And as I say, I've lived in these worlds since I was 11. So I'm thankful to all those guys. And the sad truth is, as time passes, we will. These people will retire. I think did Jez retire? Someone else just retired.
Allegedly.
Had the
I mean,
drinks.
hard to know for sure, but I'm
I
pretty
thought I
sure
saw a
that's the
photo
case. Yes.
of a thing in a kind of friend of a friend Facebook thing or something like that. Anyway, maybe it didn't happen. But either way, more are going to leave, and sadly, we are going to lose some. That's the nature of the beast. But we're in a time now where I think people have got the ability and realised like the importance of getting the stories, getting the information,
That's a
getting
good point. Yeah.
thing. You look at someone like Jordan Sorcery and the work he's doing.
Yes, well
There's
said.
who's the YouTube guy? Nasdaq Phil?
Oh, I know who you mean. The guy who's doing the sort of video interviews and did a bunch with. Yeah, I
Yes,
know who
I'll
you
try
mean.
and get his name because he did plenty with John, didn't
Yeah.
he? Let me think. I'm just
I'll
going to try and
look
find
it
it
up.
here.
Let's carry on. Yeah.
Film Deg Miniatures.
There you go. Yeah.
Arbitrary, and like the people are doing things in the right way. I know he talks to people less, but he's got the old story. But they're being recorded. Jordan Sorcery doing this brilliantly, particularly. When Brian Nelson passed, we've suddenly got these stories and things like that. But yeah, hopefully that information. If this happened 20 years ago, we wouldn't know as much. We wouldn't have the ability to find out as much. And the other beautiful thing that we get from Film Deg and John and all the other people who are doing those kind of things is we get a little bit of that while the person's still with us.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know how it feels for those people, but I know we're going to talk in a minute. We'll move on from this, obviously. I saw Sir Ian Livingston at UK Games Expo. And you know what? I only know about how important he was because of people doing these podcasts and YouTube channels and things like that. And the ability to say, I say, I've lived in your worlds for 34 years. Thank you. Because all my friends come from this world. Like, it means so much without any overt thinking about it. It just is. So, yeah, fair play to anyone who's doing that work well. And Film Deg and Jordan do it well and do it right as well, which is good. So yeah, and
strange.
I tell you what it is as well. It's very easy for people to exaggerate, or not exaggerate, but go over the top with words like legend and things like that. And I saw people writing, and the Bell of Lost Souls will toll, and there aren't many more deserving people. Actually, yeah, John was a legend. And we go back 8 years, Alan Bligh. Right? It's had that effect because these people are important.
Mm.
Not to say that others aren't, but they've had a far-reaching effect.
Mm.
And by all accounts, very nice people. Okay, how are you, Howard? You been getting much hobby done?
Not bad. I actually got a game of Titanicus in the other evening with. I know that
with
game.
Grant?
No, with new friends. Although there's an interesting trend here, which I'll come to. Chap I met and played a wonderful game with at the last Beachhead, a guy called Luke Turner, who turned out to be just up the road from me. At that weird moment of, you travelled for this game. Yeah, I come from London. Oh yeah, big place. Which part?
Yeah.
West London. And it went on, and we slowly narrowed it down and realised we were 10-minute walk away from each other. And you're like, okay, that's fantastic. We will get some games in, and we proceeded to have a brilliant time. Finally got round to doing that, and we played a game. And I wanted to get some terrain together for that. But I've been actually working on some heresy terrain, ready for getting some heresy games in. I've started painting up a fallen warlord, or rather the remains of individual pieces. So that was big scale, and then very rapidly had to go back and have a look at terrain for a Titanicus game. And that was a lot of fun. And that's sort of really been sort of creating tables, I suppose, in some ways, been my hobby since we last spoke. And that's probably the biggest thing I've been working on. I want to try and get some Mechanicum, and I've also bought a new tool. I bought a new little hand sander and saw thing, which is partly because partly I went with that because I want to get out some of the resin vehicles for custodies, and I don't fancy doing that with a hand saw and stuff and sanding them down and these giant gates and things on some of those bigger vehicles. So that is on my agenda. But yes, there's a funny thing. It's the same. I seem to meet up with people at Beachhead, then proceed to discover they live near me in London, play a game with them, and then find they're emigrating. Luke has just got a job in China, so we're heading over there. And a similar thing happened with Simon. Simon, who the Essex Wargamer, as he is on Instagram. He similar thing. We started playing a few games, and he went with his wife over to Stockholm, or over to Sweden rather. So the West London community continues to be a slightly evolving thing, but yeah, I've had a really good game, really fun game. I'm hoping to get a few more in before he heads out across the world.
Sure. Yeah, that's cool. That's good.
What about you? What have you been up to?
I don't know. What have I been up to? Painting some Eldar.
They were looking great, by the way.
Almost finished my my first 5 Wraith blades. They're not built particularly well. I bought them like that, and I am telling myself not to care about it.
That's easier said than done. I have a tendency to buy stuff cheaper, and I'm like, oh, this is a nice cheap way of doing this. I'll be fine with it. And then I'm prizing shoulder pads off and repairing them.
Yeah, there's the odd gap in a shoulder pad. I'm like, fine. Then I noticed the shields have been 2 or 3 of them have got the shields glued on upside down, and it's like, oh, that's a bit. 2 of them. I'm like, no, I'm not worrying about it. I'm not caring. It's not that important. That's not what this project's about. So I've almost finished those, and I need to go on. I start the Wraith blades, and I need to start looking on eBay for super cheap deals for Wraith Guard. If anyone's got any super cheap, and I mean, like, I'm out here doing this project as cheap as possible. Like, I will put in silly low bids on eBay, and if I win it, I win it, and if I don't, I don't, because I'm in no major rush and I don't have a lot of money. Free money.
Nice to do a project like that sometimes, where it's all about that side of it rather than thinking,
I don't
this
think
is another milestone project. It's quite nice to have one that's a bit looser.
And now I've kind of got the colour scheme down. I think it will be fairly quick to do. So that's done. Started building some Cities of Sigmar. that arrived. I tell you what, 266 quid doesn't get you a lot nowadays. When you include a cog fort in your army.
That's a kit though. That's a kit and a half.
I haven't even started that. So yeah, done a bit of that. Went to UK Games Expo, had a walk around. Kind of cool. So
very jealous.
again, I've got no money. The main reason I went was because Kat and Caleb were going, and from CK Studios working with Army Painter, I was like, yeah, I'm going to come up and see those guys. Absolutely want to do that. So go in. I'm not going to spend any money. Oh, okay. Actually, the mead guys there. I'll get Dad a bottle of mead for Father's Day. So got a blueberry and something mead, something like that for him. But walked in. Okay, I'm going to look around all these stalls, and unless something really jumps out as being, future important, maybe I'll just take a card and buy it later. The first tricky issue was the Daylight Company were there doing 25% off.
Oh,
and they had a very portable lamp for 30 quid.
Oh,
and
no.
I was like, yeah, maybe I should have done that. But no, wasn't spending the money. Resisted. There'll be another time. Saw a catapult game, like a proper, like there's the old, there's an old like big board game where you had catapults and what was it called? Crossbows and catapults. Well, this has got basically a better catapult and some stone walls you build, and then there's expansions for dragons and pirate ships. And I was like, James is 4. If I get him this for Christmas, I think he's going to be just made up, smashing walls down. So I was like, okay, we've got money to buy things for like Christmas presents now. That's not a bad thing. That's not my personal hobby money. So I thought I'll grab him that. So we've got that. So we're going to try and start building up a little gaming collection for him.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, actually. Looks really fun. They were like, if we're doing a deal on these, we've only got this. And I had to buy it there and then because they were like, we sold 60 copies yesterday or 90 copies yesterday. We've got 24 today. Bearing in mind, I was there on Saturday. I was like, okay, I'll buy it now. Carry a big bag around. I went to try and I wanted to play with some paints. They had the color paints there, but I could, again, it was like at Salute where it was 2 people sat the other side. Didn't look like it was getting to play with them, which I thought you could. So it was like, oh, that's a shame. No worries. Move on.
They might have been doing that somewhere else.
Maybe.
No, I'm thinking of MPO. MPO, right, they had a setup separately to do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there were, who were next to them? AK, I think. But there were other people doing lots of different things. But they were doing well. Ionic had a decent, smallish stand, but they were a decent presence on the small stand, which was quite interesting. I thought, no, I'm going to stay away. I'm like, I've made my decision with paints again. With the way I paint, I don't need to go beyond what I'm doing. I almost bought the Hollow Crown Trench Crusade Albia Force again. Managed to resist again. But that might be I think that's an STL thing or a Kickstarter thing, but they almost got me in on that. And then I got to Army Painter and saw Kat and Caleb, well, Caleb and then Kat later on, which is brilliant. There were issues. I don't know if you know that there were delays to all their stuff getting there, them and Trench Crusade.
Oh crap! No, I didn't
massive delays. Claims by the courier, very serious claims of the courier company of reasons why they couldn't get there, which we're not 100% sure were true, because Army Painter, after a bit of time, got their stuff and were questioning like timings of statements and things like that. But they basically said something had happened to the driver, and separately a flat tire. But Trench Crusade and them were like sweating on getting their stuff in time for the show. Like, not cool.
Which is one of the most significant shows, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, and having nothing there, like all of Thursday is not cool. So yeah, bless them. And what else? But Army Painter actually gave me some their Fanatic starter set, the 50 paints.
Oh, nice.
And some of the John Blanche stuff as well. And I love the war paints. I think the Fanatic
I
War
think
paints.
I'm a fan.
I think they're really good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of those. Actually, they've become part of my regular rotation. I'm looking at my Sons of Horus thing here, and the majority of the paints I've pulled for those are all. Well, in fact, it is, I think, but with the exception 2, 3, there is the Fanatic paint. I just found those to be very effective, very consistent, and the system that they work with is great. That the flexible triads things, I think they are.
Even beyond that, so I actually packed up all my paints, and I talked about this before, like Vallejo, like changes that Vallejo can have. I'm also just not all my Vallejo paints are air paints, and I don't use my airbrush. So putting an air paint on a wet palette means it separates even quicker. So it's just not worth me having them. It's just not a thing. GW paints, I mean, some of them are very old, but they dry up, and you're spending money on them. Is it worth me? Now I have easy access to the 2 local shops, and I've always got Element. I've always got places that can send me them. It's not hard to get hold of war paints anymore, Fanatic war paints. So that was always GW's biggest selling point on paints for me, was the fact that I knew I could go to a shop and get them. So yeah, I'm like, what do I need from paints? Do I need the best of everything? No, I don't. Do I just need paints that can do me the job? Yes, I do. Are there the odd paint from other ranges that are going to be useful to have? Am I going to have titanium white, bold titanium white sat on my desk in addition to what I've got? Yes, I am, because it's pretty freaking good. Am I going to have scale 75 decayed metal, or whatever it is? Decayed metal. Yes, I am. But I'm not going to do that for a huge amount of paints. So if I can have a range where I know what I'm getting, the agitators are there, the bottles, don't get me wrong, no bottle's perfect, but I understand how they work. I don't think they're going to dry up. They're cheaper than a lot of other brands. It's fine for me.
Yeah. I think I'm finding the core ranges like that, where the more perhaps slightly eclectic ones or more esoteric ones are a slightly different beast, whereas the ones that could create your core range. That 50 set as well, I think I got that for their speed paints or something, one of those, and maybe the air paints as well. Those mega sets, as they call them, I think are very, very effective. They don't. The all in is a bit extreme. Those sets, I think, they're very wieldy.
Yes,
if they are,
absolutely,
as opposed to being this sort of lumbering thing, and you think, oh, am I using all of this? What I've been paralysis behind this. I think you'll find you use those a lot, and the technology in them is impressive. That it's moved on so much since we entered the hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. They seem like you've got the shade marker on there as well if you want to see kind of where it fits within that. How much I'm going to use that, I don't know. But you've also got like the Army Painter. Like, they're doing a lot now. Army Painter. I don't know how long they've been doing it. They're also good people, and we've talked before. Like, is the paint range going to change? Well, any paint range can change. Are Army Painter going to be more reliable? Let's hope so. No, they changed because they had issues before. Speed paint and all that. Fixed it. Fine. Are they good people? Yes. Like, the employees that I know at Army Painter are good people, and are not the kind of people who would hang around if they didn't feel like it was the place to be. And Kat's decently. She's not like. She's not serving on a shop counter. She's, in solidly in the company. So, and I got to meet Ian, I think it was, who lives over in Denmark, where their factory is, and he seemed like a really sound guy as well. Another ex-GW staff member, because of course. But yeah, we had a good fun meeting up with them on Saturday night at the airport after the football. So yeah, I think I'm sold on the Army Paint now. I'm in.
Yeah,
I think start replacing a few of the paints that I know I need for other paint jobs. That's the only thing I'm like. And again, I think I'm getting to the point now where I don't have to be perfect on matching. I think
I've relaxed that. I just was getting quite fussy about that, but actually, I found it's much more important to me, almost the consistency, the delivery of it. Not saying, "Well, I've got to work with that paint." If it's a struggle to work with that paint, then it's gone, and I will get something that's close enough. And actually, who cares across this?
Yeah.
This isn't competition painting. That's different. This is something where I'm just
Yeah,
trying to get across an army, and if there's a subtle change, there's 50 things I can do to try and address that. I think army paint is up there. I think Transatlantis Games Too Thin Coats is up there. I think they're comparable. The difficulty with those is they're not quite as widespread, but they are excellent. P3 I thought were challenging that. I was reaching for those quite a lot. I found this to be very good, but they've had a bit of a wobble with their latest Kickstarter that's making me a bit nervous. So I'm not sure they've got quite the range.
An interesting company in that there's something about the way they've done certain things where it's not that I don't trust them, but it's, how do you word it? It's not that I think they're going to do anything dodgy, but do I think that down the line I'm going to have exactly the same opportunity, experience, or whatever as I do now? I don't know. I look at just some of the little things they've done, like Guild Wars seem to be going great guns, and then don't really know what happened there, but they made decisions, and maybe they were the decisions they had to make. But I suppose I haven't got the confidence in them, and that's a me thing, maybe. That had they taken over Privateer Press and all the games and the paints, P3 paints. Down the line, for me, I think maybe if they're around, then and they've had a solid X amount of years of doing it, then cool. But yeah, I can't quite put my finger on it, and there may not be a real valid reason for it. It's just feels, vibes. That I'm like, let them prove themselves. I think that's the way. Prove to me that you're going to be reliable.
They were an interesting contender in there, but I think that the top two for me are those two. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of good things about Ionic. I think we touched on that before, but
yeah,
haven't had any personal experience with them yet, and they're not widespread enough quite for me yet. But Too Thin Coats and the range from Transatlantis and the army painted ones, and the army painted ones, they're so ubiquitous. They're everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's a major part of it, right?
It is. It's huge, I think.
The best ability is availability.
Yeah.
To transpose a sporting statement. Yeah, I actually went through my Google Sheets, and there's a couple of I had a couple of mech paint guides in there which I'm not doing anymore. So I was like, I can delete them. And then I had my Mega Gargants ones, and I'm like, I'm actually moving paints, and I know roughly what I'm doing. I don't need to follow a guide on that anymore, so I can delete that. The only there's only a couple of things where I'm like, okay, cool. I need to color match for my the limited amount of painting I've done for my Space Wolves for Legions Imperialis and Heresy, and my my Blood Bowl team, my Bretonnian Blood Bowl team, and in fact my Skaven. But then my Skaven I have no idea what colours I used on them because it was donkeys years ago, 10 years ago. But so I'd need to have tried to match them with GW anyway, so it's fine. But my Bretonnian Blood Bowl team, I need one more lino to buy, and then I'll have to paint match it. But it doesn't really matter if it's not 100%. He's always going to be the 12th player. And then the star players that go with them are always going to be. They can be slightly different anyway. So yeah, I'm like, cool, not a problem. I'll work it out. So yeah, that's my new paint thing, and I've been doing little bits of painting, so that all helps, I think.
I'll be interested to hear your thoughts when you've cracked them open and started working with them.
Well, I've been using 6 or 7 already on those Eldar.
That was with those. Okay.
Yeah, burning ore. I'm trying to remember which one I use now. Pale sand or warm stone or both. Aquamarine, because it's the perfect match for the midwinter ice paint. And then the matte black. Cool. They've been working fine. And did I use the metal? No, I didn't use the metal. I used someone else because I didn't have any metal for them at the time. So, yeah, it's been going on fine. it's been pretty easy, pretty good actually, decent experience. So moving forwards with that, I'm obviously going to play around a bit more. I saw Colourforge have got some new spray paint base colours out as well.
That was one of their announcements at UKG. Yeah, it was the Games Expo.
Games Expo, yeah.
One of those that I've seen doing the rounds on several of the groups I'm a part of is the colour they've done, Warmonger Green, which is their attempt at a Sons of Horus colour, and it is the reviews I've seen of people in a couple of the Sons of Horus groups. People are saying, yeah, it's bang on. It's really good. So people are really pleased with it. So that's pretty cool that exists as a spray now.
Yeah, they're just another company that seem to be doing the right things. Like, seem to be getting it right with that. These Eldar, like I say, because I'm doing wraiths. Like 90% of the model is, that one color, or can be done that way. Oh, if I knock that up, I need to do some touch-ups. Yeah, so it's just like, ice spray, cool, done, bosh.
Are you going to be picking up 11th edition to use these models, or
not for a while? I'm not getting the box set. No need. Because
I'm not rushing for that.
Space Wars in Eldar, so it's not worth it. I will get the book, probably not in the release period because I'm a bit skint and I haven't got money. I haven't got an army paint. I'm selling all because. Let me start that again. So, because I'm doing Space Wars, I'm thinking I'm going to lean into all the Space Wars stuff and have fewer of the generic, because that seems to be it kind of fits. There will be some generic stuff, so I've got to sell a load of stuff and buy more Space Wars. But for me now, just the way things are, it's going to take me a lot longer to do that, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I'll break out some models. I'm going to let the guys at the club play it for a couple of weeks, and then I'll pick the right ones and say, right, teach me the ways of 11th.
Of course, the rules I forgot put it out for free.
The core rules, yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to. You don't actually have to go and get the. I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of extra bits like the card packs and things that make it
also
the missions. But
there's also how much is in the advanced rules, and then interactions. So I'll get a rule book and I'll probably get it spiral bound. Just make it easier.
I think the advanced rules are in the download, aren't they?
I thought it was just core rules.
Oh, just the core rules. Yes, you're right. I think the word advanced is a funny thing, because I think that there are advanced rules in the core rules.
Yeah.
There's extra stuff that isn't.
I think you can play the game, but I'll get the whole lot, because then I'll have all the missions in or whatever it will have.
Yeah, whatever those extra things. I think it's missions, because advanced rules is in the core rules, but it's just missions and stuff like you say.
Right.
It's an 88-page document, which I didn't realise.
It's quite a chunky one. Yeah. To be honest, more importantly, I'm looking at the chapter proof cards.
Yeah.
Things like that, because that's the way I'm going to engage with 40k. Our club is very competitive, style gaming, and I will be pushing okay guys, I just want to play for shizzles, and I'm you play hard. Even in narrative, you play to win, but I'm not going to be bringing you're
not going to be agonizing over list building.
No, I'm not bringing loads of 3 what they call the chaos things they redid, the defilers. Yeah, I'm not bringing 3 defilers. It's not happening. Even if I wanted to. So yeah, it'll be, I'll be bringing my stuff, tone your list down. Let's try and do something. And hopefully those chapter approved cards, and hopefully there'll be other people putting out missions. There'll be games where White Dwarf missions to be choosing as well, which add more narrative. Because for all that they're trying to change the game a little bit for a competitive scene, it's still going to end up over the course of time, it always funnels, sharpens the edges and reduces the effectiveness of making the narrative choice. Or not even the narrative choice, but it funnels you into a certain style, a certain way, and a certain approach that I don't necessarily want to be funneled into. So, and there's lots of people at our club who will play both, and someone who will only play one way, and I'm just probably won't play them very often. Or no, that's a bit harsh actually, because one of my best mates would generally plays competitive, because he's always of the thought of, well, what is narrative? We're all playing different levels. But that would be just tone your list down a bit. As you say, don't triple up anything that's worth tripling up, and I'll bring something that is what it is. So yeah, you're not going to get the box. You got enough going on?
I don't think so. I've never been other than Gorka Morka back in the day. I've never been an orc guy. Never not been an army that's particularly there. And those models look stunning, but I'm never going to sit down and actually make an army of them. And similarly, I've got enough Space Marines, and any Space Marines I am doing at the moment, I want to do 30k ones.
Sure.
I've got a bunch of Primaris guys from different editions that have come along, and I've just not done anything with them. I quite like the idea of a 40k one. If I was doing 40k, I would do Eldar. I've got a bunch over there. I'm a big fan of that, and Tyranids as well, big fan. But
you need a Spirit Seer.
I have 3, so I'm good, including that funky new one. But yeah, I know. But the game, I don't know. 40k is just not the game I'm going to reach for at the moment. So the box, I'm quite tempted to get the art. I'm quite tempted to see if someone's selling the box itself.
Yeah,
because I kind of want that for the nostalgia, but I don't necessarily need the content.
So I bought in that Star Wars Shatterpoint. I just don't see it getting to play at the moment now. Just think it's one of those things where some people said yes, but it's not going to happen. And I think Trench Crusade might take that role for me. We had another guy. I showed him the basics of Trench Crusade, and he got the game within 2 turns, and it was like, cool, I can do this and this. Yeah, yes you can. Yes you can. And that's you've killed him and you've hurt him, and my lowly guy rolls a 7, then rolls a 12, and your main guy's dead. And that can happen, and therefore you can't get too worked up about it. So I think Trench Crusade might become a little bit of that game. And you can play a couple of games in the night with ease. So it might be a case of get the Trench Crusade out, get it painted, show a couple of the other guys who might not be quite as interested at the moment, or show them that, like, cool, get 10 guys. That is your warband. You don't have to worry about re-equipping everyone. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Because are you going to buy gas masks for everyone and then have models without and with gas? You're not going to do it. You don't need to do it. So I think Trench Crusade could be kind of that game. But 40k is the one that always gets played at the club. Like, no matter what's happening, it always goes back to lots of 40k. There's lots of old ones. There's a decent amount of Age of Sigmar, but 40k is the one that I could always get a game for. Whether it's with the right people or not, that's a different thing. So I do want to kind of keep on it.
Yeah, and it's still, the background's still amazing, and the modeling projects are great. So it's something that's there, but it's not one there for me. I look at that, some of the Space Marines even in that new set, like the new captain and stuff. It's like, it looks fabulous, and there's some cool models to be done there. But
that librarian looks great.
Yeah, but I just don't see me rushing for that set.
I've got so much Cities of Sigmar to paint and some to build as well.
Yeah, plenty to be getting on with instead.
Indeed. I think that's probably a good space to leave it, isn't it? A little bit shorter on this bit, but I think we've got some decent stuff going on in the show. I need to get this edited as well and get it out to you as soon as possible. I do need to try and build my Army Painter little paint holder, which I'm finding quite difficult.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I just think I maybe need to trim a couple of the holes. Some of the slots aren't slotting that well.
Okay.
But I will try and do that at some point when I'm a little less getting frustrated by doing that. And
you were mentioning about getting your spreadsheets out of colours, recipes and things. Like, there are far more apps out there than there used to be, and I would recommend having a look at some of those. I've been using Paint Rack for that. It's been very good.
Do you store your paint lists in there for like?
Yeah, basically recipes essentially for schemes. So you can have your library of paints that you own in there, but you could also do searches for. I've heard this color is the color to use for this, or that's a cool color, I want to use this. What range has a similar color? You can do those kinds of color matching things. How accurate those are, I'm not so sure. But the recipe stuff is very good.
A Google Doc, Google sheet page, I could store an unbelievable amount of information on there for specific things. I'm looking at my Brett Petonian ones now. Oh, which white do I use? Cool. How do I do the whites? How do I do the laces? How do I do the light leather? How do I do the leather, the blue, the gold, the red, the silver, the skin, without any trouble at all? It's all there. I've always got paint scheme. I've always got sheets on my phone. I don't necessarily have an issue with that. I might look at Paint Rack. I think I did download it.
In addition to Paint Rack, there's a sort of there's this others have started to come around that I think there was a few that were web based. One of which was getting quite popular. I've forgotten its name now, and it got shut down. I think they had a claim against them or something, or sort of cease and desist type thing, because they were putting information out there. But the apps that seem to still be getting around that, at least, or don't seem to be on the radar for that, there's one called Vitrine. Vitrine. That's a new one that's looking quite promising. One called
I'm just looking at
Model Paint Rack, mini paints. There's loads of them.
I'm not sure there's an app that's going to be as simple and have the information in one place as a Google Sheet in terms of my paint recipes for what I'm doing. Can these apps do other things? Absolutely. But if I go into Sheets, like I can literally just along the bottom, I've got them all labeled. Bosch, yep, Eldar, cool. Every part of an Eldar Mini has got its own section. Fine. And I just, for that kind of thing, I'm not sure that any app's going to be like better than that. Can apps do other things? For sure. But I'm also now, if I'm using Army Painter Fanatic range and speed paints, do I need much more than their resources on those? That'd be an interesting one to look at as a go.
There's
we'll see.
It'd be worth having a play, given that they're.
Maybe we can do some research on some of these apps actually, and then kind of report back on what we're finding with them.
Strengths and weaknesses of them. Yeah.
It's find if any are useful or not, because I've got the Sit Down Colour app, and my word, I don't maintain which colours I've got and which I've used and which I need to buy, and I tried it and then I don't update it, and it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't really happen that much. And I know that if there's definitely I'm the kind of person, if I definitely want a colour, I'm like, okay, I'll go and get that colour. Like, I won't look around for other alternatives that much, but I will just be like, cool, I like this colour for this model, I'm going to go and buy it. But we shall see. I'm a simple man, a very simple man.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's leave that there, and
on to the next bit. Yeah,
on to the next bit. Done. Right, well, let's be as topical as we ever have and cover Journal Tactica, the ISFN 5 Dropsite Massacre Part 1.
Hot take right out of the gate. Here we go.
Yeah, I still think it's worth looking at for,
yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what was it? There's a couple of units that people looked at, which maybe not everyone took, and I'm not sure how many people are playing the narrative missions. Hopefully a few, because they're quite cool. But there's a lot of info in there, isn't there?
There is. It was setting the mold, so people weren't as familiar with the format when this one came out. So it's kind of interesting to look at it now, knowing that it was setting the tone, if in some ways, for what was going to follow.
Yeah, and not everyone's pleased with the Journal Tactica as a format, are they?
I've not heard. Actually, I can't think of a single negative point I've seen on it. And generally everyone I've seen talking about it has been positive about it, because just purely because you get these regular releases in sort of digestible chunks in some way. That's a weird way of putting it, but I've generally seen people receive these very positively. I think there was some caution when this came out for whatever reason. I think people weren't sure what it was going to be and what it was going and how they were going to necessarily unfold, particularly as this one was a part one. We've still not seen a part two for any of the various part ones that have come along, and we haven't seen. And indeed, I've seen people questioning whether they remembered incorrectly that there were going to be kind of Legion specific Journal Tacticas, or there was going to be a Legion might be featured in them. So I think people almost saw them as like mini codices kind of thing, codexes type of thing. But that it hasn't gone that route, and maybe it won't. Who knows? But I've only seen them quite positively. What negativity have you seen around them?
There's only 2 units in them,
Mm.
which I'm paying money for downloadable content with 2 units in, and then I suppose over time we've seen how many books am I going to need to take when I go and play a game, which is I mean both things we talked about before. Could you? People can get these rules when someone's got them. We're all adults. We know what people do. Some people don't really care about the law. That in terms of sitting down and reading one of these books. So they're paying for, and they don't. We talked about narrative missions. Like how many of the old, what do they used to be called in the original Black Books? The missions, the big ones. Oh, I can't remember.
They're not Apex, are they?
No, something else.
Come forward. I've consigned that part to history now in my head. I can't remember these things.
It's a long time ago, but they used to have a title for those legendary missions, and they didn't get played very often. In fact, when I used to use them at my events, people say, "Oh, this is a cool mission." I'm like, "All these rules are in the Black Books that you all own." I may have taken one bit from one and one bit from another and put them into a third scenario from another, but they're all available to you. Just people aren't using them as. I say people aren't using them as much. Yeah, I am sure there are loads of people out there who are using them. Large sections who aren't as well, who like a more not competitive but more balanced, structured, kind of fair, for want of a better word, game. Whereas they certainly aren't. Even the one in this one, attacker defender is always going to be hard to get right.
Yes, they don't necessarily fully lean into an asymmetric setup, but it's far closer to that than a fully symmetric, balanced game version, sort of chess-like version. It's not that by any stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's it is what it is at the end of the day, and I think when did this? So this came out. This followed on, didn't it? Fairly quickly after the release.
It came out. Did it not come out at the same time? I think it came out at the same time.
That's right, and we didn't get sent a copy, which is why we didn't do it then.
Indeed.
Which, is what it is. Fair enough.
Yeah,
they don't have to send us anything,
no.
Which is, but it's kind of got put by the wayside. We meant to do this a number of times, and it's just not happened.
Including a highly entertaining misunderstanding over which book we were going to review on one occasion.
A classic. So we're going back a long time, and we're looking at it in a different way, I think. But we can still talk about the law because that's there. Particularly around the fact that we've got the Legions Imperialis books as well. We haven't done one of them for a little while, it feels like. Due one of them soon. Depending on what's going on with that game. But we're covering, you would think, the ISFAN 5 Dropsite Massacre Part 1. Great. We haven't heard enough about the Dropsite Massacre. We got Black Books. We've now got a novel. We've seen parts of it in other novels. We've seen it in multiple kind of views of it. We've had a Journal Tactica on it, and now we've got another Journal Tactica on it. It's like, are we going to be reading the same stuff over and over again? And the answer is no.
No, and
No.
I think you're right that there was some trepidation, particularly given that, as you say, there was a Journal Strategica. Is it what they were that they had already been out to cover it in that kind of that detail. And it's one of those things that I've heard this said a couple of times where people have read this and they realised that they perhaps didn't know that their knowledge of what the drop site was, or specifically the detail of it, was not nearly as detailed as they realised. Suddenly you go, oh, actually, I didn't know about that, and actually, there's quite a lot of this, which just shows that you can quite comfortably expand the detail on something, expand the knowledge of something, expand what you can talk about.
Yeah, big time.
On a specific thing rather successfully, and this was the first inkling, which is what I did. The first one of these was always going to be quite important because it was going to set the tone of what people's expectations were, and I thought they did that rather well with this. And in this law, that particularly up against something where people thought, well, this is well covered, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I thought that when we were going into the Talon book as well, because I thought, well, given how well that was covered in the previous, obviously chronologically, this is slightly, but we talked about that last show, and that going into that, knowing that there was the Legions Imperialis book out before that, or what extra can there be? Yes, we had a sort of precedent in the covering of the Siege of Cathonia, kind of different scales that was covered in for the Legions book versus the previous edition's Heresy book. But this sort of set that out again, and I think it covered it expanded on what the drop site is really quite well.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look at the drop site until a year ago, launch of this, until the launch of the new edition of Heresy, we knew they dropped, they pushed forwards. The traitors dropped in behind to ambush them. On being pushed back, they were ambushed. We know the Gorgon dies. We know that Vulcan gets captured and was doing great things, and the Raven Guard were doing their bits. And then little bits like Lorgar gets cut up by Kurz. No, not Kurz.
Corax.
Blimey, Corax.
Saved by Kurz.
Saved by Kurz, indeed. And like aspects of it, and we've seen little bits from, as I say, from different stories. Even in the aftermath, we've seen a little bit of the aftermath of Isfahan itself. But actually, when you consider the scale of the war, and we know the setup, but actually this adds to the setup as well, because overall, for what the information we have, it was very was quite short, quite concise, quite large view. And this just adds little bits and pieces into that, whilst also retelling the basics of the story for someone who's not as familiar. Because at the end of the day, you've got to remember, particularly with this version where we've gone plastic over the last few years, and we're dragging in more and more new people. There's people out there who don't know about these mythical tomes of these black books. They get a download now on every Thursday from GW, and that's their only experience of the original black books.
And this, I thought this. Almost when you were flicking through it, you got a sense that it was going to be something. As soon as you see a map in the way that it described it, and you realise you've got these gaps. I mean, I felt that my principal knowledge, and this might be something to do with the amount of time since reading the black books of it, I wasn't committing to rereading those as I'm now much more tempted to do, particularly as they're releasing the articles every Thursday. It was a long time since I read that content, so my main knowledge of this, much like we were just reflecting there, is driven by the novels, which are obviously more character driven. I didn't get such the sense, whereas this is more a military history, so you're more describing the forces, and I got a sense of that, which helps me understand the scale of it and some of the whys and wherefores.
Yeah, to a point, because there's aspects of this which deal with what's the word for it, that aren't necessarily 100% objective. about what happened. There are, and that's kind of what I like about this book, is so right at the start, like they're setting up the drop site. They're setting up like, this is what Horace did, and even right from the start, they're talking about Angron, and maybe it wasn't quite as simple as Angron screwed everything up, and then Dawn. And Dawn sent the Redemption Fleet, or whatever it's called, not Redemption Fleet, the Retribution Fleet. And did Dawn think that every single other Legion was going to be loyal? Not necessarily, and that's the first sign we've seen of that. And it makes sense. But it's the first time I've seen it written down that he was like, well, we got to do it anyway. And then later on, when they talk about that, it's like, well, they might not all be loyal, but at least they'll expend some of their effort at Isfahan, and it might be easy to beat them up when they get to Terra. Did he expect 4 out of 7 to turn? I suspect not. But I reckon he was looking at some of those legions thinking, the Night Lords, I've got a bit of history with Curse.
Yeah.
They're not a particularly nice legion. There might be a chance.
I wonder. Yeah.
Yeah, so right from the start, it's like, actually, I mean, it's the thing when we see something written down, our brains are naturally, cool, fact, and we know there's unreliable narrators. We know there's unreliable narrators from just because they're writing point of view a lot of the times. Even the old black books were written by someone, so they were affected by their position and what they could see and what have you. And now we've got maybe a slightly different story. So, certainly something to muddy the waters, to provide more discussion and different takes on characters, things like that, which I think is pretty cool. He had zero doubts about the Salamanders, though. He knew they were loyal. Bless him. But yeah, I think that's cool. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it set that up.
It also...
even that provides perspective, which I thought, which is something that John's book also lent into, that kind of the considerations that are being set up as well about who's doing what and why, and what the suspicions are there, what's in the mindset around some of it, which I think is adding considerable depth.
And we get that because we get a look at all the individual legions and what's going on. We get a bit of that here within that. Where are we going? But it adds depth to characters as well. That's what I was going to say. So when later on, when it's talking about Ferris's plan, and he's gone to Vulcan and why can't I? My mind's gone. Why can't I ever remember the Raven Guard's name? We just said it. Corax. That's really weird. It's the heat. It's getting to me.
Did you just get blurring him with Corax
Curse.
versus Curse? Yeah, they're both
weird.
C's. They're both kind of similar. Both scary Batmen.
I mean, they're not similar at all, really. But
in temperament, maybe not. But
there's
overlaps.
Yeah, he's gone to them with his plan. They're like, "Oh, we've got these other ideas," and he's like, "No, look, Horace has laid it out in a way where only one thing's going to work, and we've got to hit them up the middle as hard as we can." And then it cuts to Horace's viewpoint a little bit later on, and he's like, "Yep, here comes Ferris up the middle. He had no other choice. It's what I would have done." And you're like, "Cool," because for years people go, Ferris is an idiot because he just charged straight up the middle. It's like, well, actually, not only was that the only viable option, but it was the option that Horace, left him and would take himself. So, just because something doesn't work doesn't mean it wasn't the right option. But it's some more subtlety in what we're looking at, which I appreciate. And again, I think it's good. Again, we're talking about people who are newer maybe to the heresy, who don't have that depth of knowledge that we have, haven't read all the novels, don't understand what's going on with every legion. We go through every legion. I like Dawn's view of the World Eaters. It's like they might not be allies, but I can see them being enemies of the Imperium. But even then, with some of them, it's like with the Alpha Legion. I think was it the Alpha Legion? It's like, I mean, who knows? But they might not work for the others either. But I like it. It's good.
I was quite surprised. It was. I mean, I'm a fan of a table in these things. The map is immediately catches your eye, but they put the table in there as well, the Dropsite Massacre, which immediately makes me think of sort of classic military history things that you've got in there. But it's unusual for them to put in things more contemporaneously of sort of numbers lost and numbers present, even though there are plenty of caveats on it of it being an estimate and similar. So there's wiggle room, or as usual, with these things. But it's fascinating to see quite, as you say, it really hammered home some of the scale of this. I mean, for the Salamanders and the Raven Guard, you realise quite how devastating it was with them having 83,000 and 79,000 respectively. And in the Salamanders case, they lost 97% of that 83,000. You think, oh my, wow. And it was actually the Iron Hands seemingly got off relatively unscathed. 10,000, admittedly, utter core of their legion, but the 10,000.
Not the core, the spear tip of their legion, because it was
all the veterans,
the elite. But it shows you why the Iron Hands played such a pivotal part out of those three shattered legions. And then what they're up against in hundreds of thousands of enemy forces.
Sons of Horus. I mean, the Sons of Horus, according to this thing here, initial strength estimated at in excess of 150,000. Losses are estimated to be 60,000.
Right. Yeah, and that's
a heavy hit. The opening moves of the campaign.
This highlights that they were there taking the brunt. They were there at the forefront of Ferris's charge, possibly and probably as part of the "come get me," like to lead him in as well. Here's your target. Come and get it. Which, as I say, although Ferris had to do it, wouldn't have hurt. Horus knew the plan as well, and Horus was well set to be able to do it, which is pretty cool, to be fair. So, I mean, just jumping on from that, before we get into kind of like how that all works out, the first real expansion of what the Raven Guard did on getting to the planet, and of course this would have happened, like to an extent, like again, Horus left the fleets, to invite them in. He pushed them out of the way, and the Raven Guard took advantage of that, and they launched in vigilators and that onto the planet to do stuff. They took out air defenses to start with. They mapped the whole area. They dropped beacons to allow for the drop site to happen. Yeah, of course they would. It makes sense, but you can't write everything when you're writing a novel. But it's good to see, again, it gives you an idea for your Raven Guard what you're going to do. It doesn't go well for them when, again, Horus knows that this is probably going to happen. And see the World Eaters and the Sons of Horus like firing heavy weapons at the mountainside as well, just to trap them in before sending the World Eaters in. Like, they're brutal.
Yeah.
Really brutal. But throughout the thing, we see more Dathan squads who are dug in, who are taking pot shots and things like that. Yeah, they're out there doing their thing on the flanks, which is pretty cool. And then more Raven Guard are sent into those flanks as well. And that's all, again, although Horus knows that that's going to happen, that's all designed to pull troops out, because Ferris just needs to get to the core. Right? And that's his plan, is if I can get in there and take a couple of major heads of Primarchs, we're going to win this. Didn't quite happen, but it's pretty good, because the main force, the main part of the fighting we have read about before, although saying that the Salamanders bit was expanded after this book was written, but we've seen it in the book for Saturnine and the Legions book as well. So we got all the Dias area, and we got all that aspect of it is in there, and again, just laying it down, because why wouldn't you? Where were we? I love the fact that there's loads of human troops there, and some of them don't even know they're on the bad guy side. They're like, these ones do, and they thought, okay. These ones looked up and saw legions coming at them, and just froze in terror.
They're like, what? This isn't how we normally do things. Oh no.
Exactly. Bless them. But I liked it. I think get to the point where the loyalists look like they can win through, and then the Primarchs come out and signals the start of the retreat, and again all that's planned. Like, with 3 legions, Ferrus knew he wouldn't be able to take it. With 7 legions, like the damage they dealt with 3, think about 4 more legions turning up and taking over. It would be over. Obviously they were never going to be able to bombard it because of the shielding and stuff like that. It was all part of the plan, but they get to a point where they're like, okay, we're doing all right. Then they have to retreat. The Primarchs help swing the battle. 4 Primarchs are going to do that, and they go back to the Legion lines. And then where was the line? There's some really good lines in these books. I'm going to try and find the page now. A single. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. Feel free to fill.
Yeah, I was just trying to look through it, but I like the way it presents this. I mean, even this is making it sort of more straightforward to go through it because it's surprisingly condensed. I mean, it's a weird contradiction because actually about half this book is lore, I think, and it's quite dense, even though it is half the book is dedicated to lore. It's pretty tightly packed because it's setting the scene a bit more than I would have expected this book to do. You would imagine this would have to be laser focused because there just isn't the page count. But actually, it's setting the scene almost of the entire heresy by saying, well, where are all of the legions, not just the legions that are involved in this?
How did we get to this point?
Yeah, how did we get to this point? Sets context. So it's sacrificing some pages for that by setting the scene. So as you say, as a newcomer, this is actually a very good one. Good companion to the rulebook for that because it's expanding on the broader sweeps that the rulebook is providing. So it sets up quite a lot from that point of view, but still moves at quite a pace to be able to pack in what it does because you're setting the scene by saying what are all the legions doing. You go into considerable detail by saying what forces and what people are there. Gives context that we haven't necessarily had before that you've already touched on, but I think getting into the mindset of commanders and similar. And then you get into a sort of 24 style almost timer countdown, mission countdown kind of thing, or
which is great. And all this is happening. There's 31 page at the end of the lore section, of which there's 2. There's a 2-page map, a whole page of a Saturnine Dreadnought, and 4 color plates with more information on them.
Yeah.
So and the first 2 pages are again a double art feature. So it only starts at page 4, really. Like, there's a lot to fit in. And as you say, you go through, we get to that like staccato kind of like timestamp section. And they do it really well. And then they add some drama in as well because you get to, because these aren't, it's not narrative text. It's, it's here's what happened. It doesn't read like a history book or anything like that, but like an old history book, but they build it up, like they put down the Raven Guard, the first to break, get back to the Lorgar's troops to the web bearers, and they're like, yeah, cool, we're gonna hail you, and then there's silence coming back, and then they leave it, like little bit of drama, go on to what the Night Lord's doing, and there's salamanders and all that. And then you get to, as Ferrus closes on Fulgrim's position, a single flare is launched from the battlements of the Warmaster's stronghold, rising like a comet sent from the earth to the heavens and illuminating the sky in blood red. It's like, it's a great little paragraph. Like,
yeah. You see, particularly given the pace of the rest of it, you've got this pacey, like sort of hour by hour, almost minute by minute description of what's happening. So it's pretty lean in terms of getting through that, and yet you've still got very evocative 2-sentence. What's that? 1 sentence? It's a 1-sentence paragraph. Like,
almost, prose that isn't quite prose. It's like, what I mean. It's like this isn't a narrative. This isn't a single narrative in the way of a novel, and yet you've got bits in here which stand out like that as well. So it's really well done, I think. As we've said with all of them, to be fair, I think the team have got to be applauded.
I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I don't. I think There was a certain surprise in the reviews I read and watched at the time that this came out and after, indeed. And I agree with that, because I don't think people almost expected it to be as accomplished as it is. And the fact they've been able to maintain that now, I mean, this is a year old, and we've had, what, 4 now?
Yeah,
I think. I'm impressed by
a
that.
few. I do think there's an element with veteran heresy players, heresy readers, particularly the ones who read the black books, to dismiss or give the writing post Alan's death, and we're
Agree with that.
recording this just shortly after the anniversary of his death, to give it less weight than it deserves. When the Inferno Space Wolves, what's it called? Yeah, when the Space Wolves and Thousand Suns book came, Prospero, yeah, of course it's called Prospero. When that came out, there were lots of criticisms of the rules, but actually the story kind of got hurt by that, when actually the black book itself was up amongst the best black books there were. I don't know how much that. I don't know if Alan had done any of that. I'd set out any of that beforehand, or Neil had taken it on, or I can't remember. It's been a long time. But I don't feel the writing's ever dropped off a cliff at any point. And I think what they're doing now is back to some of their best. And I say it'd be interesting. It'll be, these are the times where you want to be able to go to a weekender and be able to talk to the whole team of writers to see how they work. Because I think they're given like, oh, so and so wrote this bit, and then so and so wrote this bit. Like they're doing that kind of thing. But I've got a feeling they must be working pretty closely together as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, I am impressed that they've maintained it, and I agree with you. I think there's a bit of a sense of, it's the opposite of the benefit of the doubt. Not giving the benefit of the doubt. There's a sort of sense of, this probably isn't going to live up to it. So there's almost there's an inherent skepticism, one way or another, and so the fact that it overcomes that, I think, speaks to its quality.
And I wonder, because obviously I'm in various different chats and whatever, and like one or two of them are definitely, I say veteran. They've been around a while, and there's a certain amount of people back in the day who deify Alan Bligh, which I think he would laugh at, frankly, from the little I know of Alan and having met him and chatted to him. But talking to John and ADB particularly about him, I think that he would, scoff at that, and also be very quick to say, "Hold on, it wasn't just me." He's quite a magnanimous guy like that. He was very open in supporting others. And it's always been a bit of a frustration for me, this kind of attitude towards him like that, because not because he isn't brilliant, he wasn't brilliant, because he was brilliant, but actually there were lots of brilliant people around him as well. He had certain aspects of his nature that made him a force of a whirlwind of writing and production for what he was doing. But as we say, like Neil, who's I still think is the head writer, I haven't checked, he worked on book 1, but his name's been on book 2. He's been there. How long has the Heresy been out? He's been there that long, so it's we shouldn't be surprised that the quality of writing is still good.
I think almost regardless of, I mean, I heard someone in a completely different field. I think it was someone talking about comedy and ultimately the move from comedy to stand up to acting, commenting on people who are better than, I know who it was. It was Adam Buxton who was talking about it. He was commenting on about reflecting on his career and careers of his peers, and he said the people who are really the greats of this, they were consistent. It's the people who can consistently perform is the key. And if they're consistently doing it, it's generally consistent at quite a high level. It's always regarded to be at a high level. Whereas if you are inconsistent, you are typically judged not necessarily on the body of work, but perhaps dragged down by some of those things that are not so good. So the fact that these are there's a consistency to the quality to it rather than an up and down, which sort of drags to it, I think speaks to it being that's quite, regardless of, as you say, that people have been there for a long time, and we should be almost expecting more of this. I still think that's an achievement. It's quite an achievement to have it to be pretty high end. Whereas I think that's not necessarily true, even if we narrow it back down to the referencing, is narrowed back down to things that are more directly comparable. I don't think some of the other Games Workshop games have the consistency of quality in the lore that's associated with the game as Heresy, and I probably include all of the Heresy games under that banner. But in terms of their lore, because the Heresy lore is kind of is all contributing to the one body of work. But I would say they are all consistently quite high.
Yeah, we're not talking about the odd thing. Oh, you said this, and that couldn't have happened there. Like odd little things like that. We're talking about the style, right? The quality, right? I do think there was a point where it was whether the approach was different, that it didn't feel like these feel. I don't know whether that's the nature of the publication, or they've worked out a formula of the way of presenting it, or how they're writing it. I don't remember feeling this 3-4 years ago.
I want to perhaps say it's tone, but maybe that's too simplistic.
It might be style of book. It might be that they've just accepted. It's really weird. I'm trying to think back to 3-4 years ago to some of those books. Like, how was the lore? We weren't for a period where the lore was quite thin, in relation to the rules that were coming. And this is obviously very much the other way. And I think, as far as I'm aware, the army books for Old World are still going down very well from what I've seen from the few people I know who read them a lot. But yeah, maybe it's the format has really helped that as well. In that these are very much it's here's a chunk of lore, scenario, or some extra rules for your games, and then a few units allows the lore to breathe a bit more, maybe.
Possibly. I was thinking more in terms of, yes, I think that probably is an element of that, because I think that balance is important. I'm thinking here of friend of the show, Track of Words Michael, has done reviews of the lore, specifically of the 40k codexes.
Right.
And that's been quite interesting because he's been doing that for some time over a number of editions. And we've discussed that, I've discussed that, and I've discussed it with others. And we used to, no, this might be just because of my age and my own development, but I used to devour, and I'm thinking primarily of second edition here, but I used to devour any and all lore of 40k and everything sort of around it. That ceased a long time ago. But I still find myself reading it, and you had a bit of a tendency in codexes to things to be regurgitated. You had the same content being repackaged and represented, and that's fine because those are source books for people coming to it new, or kind of logically. But there has been more occasions where there were examples of that lore. It's not quite nowhere near jumping the shark is the phrase. It didn't go bonkers, but it was just the tone of it.
Yeah.
It was it started to sound more like a science fiction show of a particular type, and you thought,
I think
this has lost something of the grand opera that this was previously being, whereas Heresy doesn't seem to have hasn't lost that, and even that sounds a bit over the top, but you know what I mean. It still maintains something that keeps it attractive to me.
I think there might be 3 reasons I can think of why that's happened. One is the tone of Heresy is very specific.
Yes.
I think if you lose that tone, then you lose the Heresy.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think how many books do they have to put out for 40k? 26 every 3 years, something like that. Like we say, we've had 4 of these books where the lore is less kind of thick than a codex, so that may play a part. And I think possibly more importantly is the restrictions on a heresy book. You've got a 7.5 year period. You've got specific bad guys and good guys. You've got a characters can only be within a certain bandwidth of their story, and if you go too far out of that, people are going to go, whoa, that's not heresy. Whereas 40k, you go, write me a Space Wolf story. Cool, you got a whole galaxy to play with. Whereas in heresy, it's like, okay, cool. Where were the Space Wolves? What were they doing? Where can I fit them in? Now, obviously, you got lots of little planets and things like that, but the rails are tighter, which often writers have said, that it's easier to write with more restrictions than it is fewer restrictions. So, I don't know. Maybe a combination of all that. Maybe they've just found a winning formula in their team. Maybe they've just kind of worked through things and gone, yeah, this is it. Anyway, moving on from that, we've got a first wave mission. It's 4 objectives. It's attackers deployments. It has 2 deployment zones, of which vehicles can go in zone 2, which is 10 inches in from the long edge, and then the rest can go in the next 10 inches. So there's 18 inches between deployment zones. It's not very far. The objectives are not very far from the front of that attacker's deployment zone either. But the attackers' objectives are to capture objective markers, and the defenders are to slaughter the flow. 2 victory points for when an enemy unit has its last model removed as a casualty. It's an interesting one.
It's. I mean, I quite like the
defender automatically
like
wins
the
the roll off. Yeah, you've got to be laying some punishment down pretty quickly.
Which I think makes sense, doesn't it?
It does for that, absolutely. Yeah, I'd like to play something like that one day.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting that they released this as a downloadable thing alongside, because I checked a minute ago, and this did come out on exactly the same day as the Saturnine box, so it was a launch product effectively. But they released this mission as a downloadable thing. It wasn't locked to this only, which they haven't done that since. So it was interesting that existed. But it's a relatively light touch in terms of an adjustment to the game itself.
Yeah, it is. Still 4 turns. But there we go. That's my personal gripe.
Yes. Which are some of the other legendary missions moved to 5, didn't they?
Yeah. If anyone's played it, let us know. Let us know how it goes. Because it's an interesting one. I think we're starting to see more and more different missions. We're starting to see more and more different kind of add-ons to Heresy. We seem to have got there quite quickly, this kind of edition. But this is obviously the way that GW were looking at playing it. So, yeah, let us know how it's gone. Then we've got a page of Battlefield assets. I mean, when you look through the 4 books, you've got a lot of stuff to add into your game if you want. There's a lot of resources here. Yeah.
Battlefield assets are a funny one because they're funny. I've heard people talk. I was listening to a podcast the other day, or a YouTube video, that at various events across game systems, the adding in your own objectives or things like this, these assets, and allowing you to have these sort of little modeling exercises almost adds a considerable amount of flavor and interest in a little side project. Yet I sort of look at these and I find myself sort of glossing over them, which I think I'm kind of doing unfairly. I shouldn't do that and I think actually some of the ones in the later books perhaps spoke to me more than these ones did. But I remember much earlier books, 20, 30 year ago books, the epic books, that had modeling minefields and things. And that occupied me as a 12-year-old or whatever, 12, 15-year-old. I was like, yeah, absolutely, this is going to add to this. And I was modeling craters and all sorts. And that's exactly what this is doing. And you think, well, actually, those are quite cool. And you've then got themed ones. I mean, particularly the contingency device, sort of doomsday device things that you could have, all these vengeance type weapons. That's super cool, isn't it? I mean, that's actually, if you lean into that, I should not be glossing over these in the way that I have been.
You are not. We see it. If you go to events, you see it a lot. People aren't bothered by the extra bits because it's hassle. I think a lot of time, or they just, because it's extra, it just slips past that part of the brain. And these ones, you have to model them. Like it's effort. If people don't like modeling or don't like building stuff that they aren't going to use very often, yeah, maybe. But all these things together, these are the things when I'm looking at people making events. There's always is and always will be and always has been a level of, can we standardize everything here, guys? Couldn't event organizers get together and work out like how we do this? And it's like, I don't want to go to the same event every game, like every week. If I'm sign up for an event 8 months in ahead and they say you have 5 asset points to spend, and here's your list of assets you can have, and they've taken like them from different books, and you can use them, and people can come up with different stuff. Obviously, these ones, like some of them are attacker, some are defender, but you can have missions where you do that, or you can have other ways to utilize them. They can just be stuff that's been left from previous battles and things like that. Then it adds something different to the game. Makes it less static. We complained for years that we had 6 missions that were, again, because people weren't playing some of the more narrative missions, because some of them were extremely difficult for one side to play against. But this is just, they're another way of spicing things up. Particularly if you've got a gaming group and you are playing campaigns, that kind of thing, it allows you to. Defender attacker ones particularly allow you to have bases, allow you to have territory that's yours, things like that. They're a great thing to have. I say, when I was running events, I was looking through all the black books. Took photos of every page of terrain rules, of mission specific rules, and some planets would be cracking apart and some would have carnivorous plants and whatever it needed to be. Some were in swamps, things like that, to just create a bit of a difference in the games that were being played. Because it doesn't take much sometimes. Anyway.
No, and it's that much sort of stronger for it, the richness of that, which is kind of what you want when you're going to an event, isn't it?
You would have thought so.
Everyone's mileage may vary. People are going for different things, and as long as that's communicated, we discussed that before.
Yeah, some people are very keen to play. We line up against each other and we play the game, and that is what that is.
Because you're there for the game mechanic, more or less than the story. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Anyway, they gave us some units. So the Master of Descent was very talked about at the time, bearing in mind how deep striking in a 4-turn game can be.
I think this is a really interesting inclusion in here, because I think the other 2 units that are in here are much more typical of what the Journal Tacticas sort of provide, in that, and I think it was even said as much in an article or something, that an interview that was said at the time, to say actually these are units that you can build yourself. You can essentially kit bash out of different things, or indeed get alternative use out of parts of it. In the case of the Augur Command Squad, which we'll come to, you're just taking models that were part of another unit and using them in a different way. That is great in itself, because you're getting greater utility out of something you already have, which is super cool. These were much more what I imagined Journal Tactica was going to be about, that and the Hyperius, where you're kit bashing something or to creating a variant on something that already exists. The Master of Descent is rather different, in that he represents a sort of centurion type character, command level character, but he's such an essential, such a capable type of archetype within the Legion list. And as you say, it's speaking directly to that limitation, which I think knocked a few people, certainly did me, of not noticing that Deep Strike was not what it was in terms of how your army could be constructed. This character, I think his inclusion is huge, and so for him to be in one of these sort of what I would consider to be an almost auxiliary product, I was quite surprised.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I wonder when the decision was made to include this here, and the interdiction cadres as well.
True. That's true. Yeah.
Because could they have not been in the main book, or was that a specific decision made to bring them out of that book? We don't know. It does mean that these books can be what they want them to be. I think it shows that it can be here's your kit bash. It can be here's your we need to release this thing, and we're going to put it out this way, which I think is going to be the way forwards when they're adding in a lot of units to Legion specifically. But it's hard because it was the first one. It was like, oh, what have we got here? Oh, and then all of a sudden the interdiction cadres were everywhere. And people were talking about the Master of Dissent as well. I don't know how as if it was used as much, but certainly for the people who wanted to play, it didn't do the job that people were hoping it would do when they saw the name. They thought, okay,
No.
here's my drop assault army back again. It's like, no, it's not that, but it is making something more reliable.
Yes, and it for certain. I mean, you certainly see that character appear, or at least in the discussion, when someone's putting together, say, a Blood Angels list and wanting to represent that kind of drop assault mindset. And why wouldn't it? Of course, it's a character that leans into that and giving you that stuff arriving from Deep Strike on turn one, i.e., an extra turn rather than of a 4-turn game.
Is it extra turn or is it just you don't roll?
A model with a special roll can arrive by Deep Strike in the first battle turn.
Oh, that's right. Cool.
If the model with special rules in reserves, it and any unit, you can use the Deep Strike special rules when to play during. Can use only one unit, but once he's on the field, his Stratovox means you're not rolling. So he not only is he unlocking the ability for him and his unit to arrive on the first battle turn, that once he arrives,
his mates can
subsequent
come
units. Yeah, subsequent units are coming without that, which is pretty big actually. Obviously.
Oh yeah, well, as I say, in a 4-turn game, you can't afford. Well, having stuff come down turn 2 is bad enough, bearing in mind you can't charge, and and then having you failing that roll.
But like you say, that the idea of Deep Strike being a delivery system for a close combat unit. I mean, I've played games recently, and I was thinking, oh, that'd be cool. We'll have Abaddon arrive with the Justarian, and they'll teleport in. And you think that means Abaddon and the Justarian not in combat until turn 3, earliest. Potentially turn 4. And you think, well, that's a massive amount of my points. Let alone the sort of coolness of it. And you think, well, okay, so then I'm looking actually more likely at a Land Raider or a Spartan or something.
Indeed.
Which is a shame. I think it's a shame. I mean, I'm sure we've discussed this before, but that's a shame, as it is around general army construction. As you say, there are, and I'm still bitter about this because we're a year on from the game, or nearly a year on from the 3rd edition arriving, and there's not been a suggestion of a way that you could run an army that was a legitimate, fully kind of core way of building an army, a drop pod army, a drop pod assault army, or even a subterranean assault army. Those were ways of building an army in the previous 2 editions of the game. You can't do that now. It's quite apart from the mechanic of being able to drop things in. You just can't do it. So that's even a shame. And as you say, I had an expectation of this with a mission called The First Wave and a Master of Dissent and representing the Dropsite Massacre. There are indeed photos in this with multiple drop pods landing. You thought that this would have been the place, surely, and it isn't, and there hasn't been since. Maybe it will be in part 2. Who knows? It's not materialized. That's a shame because that is an army style I've been a fan of. I'm aware, as we record this week, there are channels that are putting out their own sort of rules for ways of doing that, and they were just the first, I'm sure, and there'll probably be others, but who are having suggestions of how one might try to get closer to that drop assault army. And that's great. Of course, you can do homemade versions of them in your own games, but I'm just surprised that hasn't materialized. And the Master of Descent at least gets you a bit closer to that in terms of dropping in with jump packs or drop pods. But yeah, maybe we'll see it in the future. I hope we do.
It'd be interesting to see whether this edition of the game can support it.
Is it the wrong engine for it? Yeah.
Which is why I think they probably left it out for now. I
think the Mail Fist perhaps gives us a clue to that, because the Mail Fist, the Journal Tactica Mail Fist, gives almost an alternate game mode to focus on vehicles. I wonder if there might be something similar that will represent a drop assault. Maybe it's, as you say, maybe to put it in the core of the game upsets the balance of the game too much. And I think that's probably a reasonable thing to say. I've heard people reflect on that who were lamenting the loss of the drop assault type army or the subterranean assault army. They skewed it so much that if it worked, it was pretty overwhelming for the defender. If it didn't work, it unraveled pretty damn quickly. So it was a kind of an all or nothing thing, which is not the greatest of game experiences per se. And maybe this version of the game didn't support that to an even greater degree. I've got no idea. So it might be that they want to do much like they've done with that Mailed Fist, where they introduce those armored missions and game modes almost, that they might want to do something similar. I would have thought the Dropsite Massacre book would have been the one for that, but given that it was coming out first.
So I had this discussion with someone else, actually. What do you think of if I was to say Dropsite Massacre, what's the first image that comes to mind of the style of fighting?
Interesting. Yeah, that's a great question.
Because for me,
is it the drop, or is it actually the grinding massacre? Yeah.
For me, I don't even think about the drop pods. The drop pods are just the quickest way to get troops onto the landing fields. That's all they are. And have GW kind of like, someone said, well, why did they do this and that and that? And I'm like, yeah, fair enough. Like, there are things in the other book that make it look like the Legion's book that made it look like maybe drop pods should get more from it. But for me, the Dropsite Massacre, they had to stage the drop and then the fighting happened. Did some drop pods get shot down? Yes. But it's not about the drop. They didn't come straight out of those drop pods into the depth of fighting. The only reason they would have done if the shields went up, and they could have done it potentially, but they dropped and then they walked into the fight. So for me, indeed, it doesn't.
The very drop site that they returned to, even the second wave legions, they didn't.
No.
It wasn't a combat drop per se. It was like you're not dropping into combat. They fell back into prepared positions. So you're absolutely right. That's a really interesting term. It's actually, the name is not misleading as such, but it's not actually drop pods or the drop assault. It's not actually a drop assault.
It's not a spearhead attack.
No. Yeah.
And I've never put drop pods into that fight in my head.
So you think of the story around it's in John French's book. There's a whole company of super heavies, Iron Hand super heavies. It follows them as a viewpoint character swinging around on one of the flanks. And you think, well, that's not the role of a drop assault per se. So I agree completely. Actually, that's a very good way of looking at it. So maybe this isn't the best fit for it. I've misassociated it with that, but I wonder. Where it will be.
As you said, it's called the Dropsite Massacre, which makes people think about dropping stuff in. And I say the Legion's book as well. They did some stuff, and I can't remember exactly what it was, where people were like, well, why is this in there? I'm like, fair enough. But I've never, ever, like, they're not married together in my thing. If I think of drop assault or anything like that, I'm thinking opening of Fear to Tread, where the Blood Angels drop. I'm thinking Sons of Horus spear tips and various places.
Mm.
I'm trying to think of specific battles, but yeah, there's a few. There's not even that many which are really like all about the drop pods. Say the Sons of Horus have a couple, but yeah, definitely doesn't. This fan doesn't even come into my thinking when I think of great drop pod battles. So
no.
but
So
it'll
maybe
be
there's
interesting to
room
see
for
if they
that
do them.
elsewhere. But certainly the Master of Descent, very, very cool character. Very
Again,
potent, I
what's he
think.
doing in there?
Yeah. No,
In all of that new lore, in the other lore, there are assault marines like talked about, but there aren't. There are very few kind of drops talked about, if any, which is
a
interesting.
Master of Descent character exists in John's book, which
Yeah,
speaks to the coordination of the two wings of the company, which is great. But there, the Raven Guard Master of Descent, who is responsible for coordinating how you get everything out of orbit to the ground, which is logical and I think makes a lot of
yes,
sense. As a game character, I think he's extremely effective at what he does and in what he's unlocking. Those two rules in comparison, either one of those rules, the one that allows you to bring guys in without rolling, if they do that reserves test is automatically successful, because you're using the Stratobox. That's huge, as is the ability to arrive by deep strike on the first turn for him and his immediate mates. And he unlocks an additional auxiliary detachment, which is a damn good one.
yeah,
A retinue slot and 2 elite slots, which those have to be veteran assault squads. And the retinue slot has to be a Praetorian command squad. All 3 of those are damn good. And the 2 elite slots are prime advantage. That's a very, very useful auxiliary detachment as well.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, it was a great book out the starting gate, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
as we said, I think it's been followed up. I think we've only got the Skitarii book due, and we're up to
Yes,
date.
that's correct. Yes.
So we will do that soon. But I think it was worth going back and looking. And if you haven't read it, and if you've kind of skimmed past it or whatever, it's definitely worth a read, I think.
I was quite excited by the Hyperios missile tank, that being the 3rd unit that was introduced in this book, purely because coming from me starting in 2nd edition 40k, that is very reminiscent of the first Whirlwind, the first production kit of a Whirlwind rather than a White Dwarf conversion kit, conversion suggestion. So that tarantula turret being just dropped onto the Whirlwind body is super cool. I just think it looks amazing, and I just think it's a cool conversion. The unit is a variant. It's not particularly significantly better than the other. It's a I don't remember what the weapon is on it. It's got the Hyperios missile launcher here. Okay.
Yes.
Which is that must be in the Legion's.
The
weapon itself, yeah, must be in the Legion's book. Either way, it's a cool conversion, and I think it's a nice thing to have that it exists. The Augur Command Squad, I think, got talked about more in there. I don't think the Hyperios was particularly, in terms of rules, was necessarily well received. It was like a meh kind of reaction, but I think the modelling is cool.
I think I've only seen one person make an Augur command that I've seen. I have never heard anyone talk about it in game. Essentially, it's 80 points to reduce a reaction cost by 1, which it's not bad.
Plus, you've got to be within 18 inches.
18 inches. 18 inches is a big.
And you've got to pass an intelligence test.
Any models, so 36-inch radius of the unit as well. How many models in the unit?
4.
4.
6.
So you can have 5 and 4 command. Oh no, 4 command and control. So yeah, you got an extra like 6 inches. So you got about 40 odd inch range of that happening, which on the battlefield can be quite big.
Yes, true.
But yeah, it's the intelligence check, isn't it? But if you're, I don't know. They don't do a lot by themselves, but if your reactions are that important to the way you're playing, It might be quite good.
Yeah, no, I think that's quite cool, and it's a cool option to have over Model 10. And as you say, the interdiction carder is one that was heavily used and has been heavily recommended, particularly as a way of getting spoiler squads. Yeah, I mean, tactical squads are handy because tactical squads are so good just in general. The spoiler squads, though, wanting to be closer, generally, it's a damn good way of deploying them.
Absolutely. I think we've done it.
Yeah, I think it's a positive book. I think that comes across. I kind of want them to release one that's a bit rubbish so that we could have a more negative view. But on the other hand, I kind of love these books. So yeah, keep going.
It'd be interesting to see if they've when they revisit the one. My one thing is they're calling it a part 1. How many of these books are we going to have if we're on a 3-year edition cycle? Which there is no guarantee we are.
No, I wonder if we are. I wonder if we are,
because these two. But I wonder if they're happy with the engine of this edition. If they just keep it going for a bit.
And maybe if
maybe an update.
Exactly, it's not an edition change. It's here's a new compiled
updated book. Yeah,
which is not similar to what the red books were, of course.
Because otherwise, you've got 3 years to have. Oh, yeah, we need at least part 2 for this, and at least part 2 for Talon. And is it just going to be part 2? But yeah, they've obviously got a plan. They must have written out a plan to know this was part 1. So wait and see, I suppose.
And there are 4 of these. What have we got? Battle of Talon, Dropsite Massacre, Mailed Fist, and Steel Hand. And actually, we've had 5 because this is the Forges of Saturn as well. So we've had 5 of these in just under a year.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. And we've had a Liber as well. We've had Liber Custodius has come out in that time. So there's sort of 6 publications have come out since the Saturnine release or 3rd edition's release in July, the end of July 25. So that's not bad going.
Absolutely, yeah. No, and we'll see what's coming next, I suppose.
About one every 2 years. So you could say, you could imagine this being almost one every 2 months.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that because of the first one coming out with the book.
Good point. Yes.
So 4 a year sounds more reasonable.
1 a quarter. Yeah, could do.
Yeah. We shall see. We shall see. Anyway, let's leave that there, I think. Wonderful stuff. I'd like to welcome to the show 2 very special guests, Roger and Duncan. You may know their voices, or certainly one of them anyway. Hi guys, how you doing?
Hello. Hello. Clearly you're talking about Roger's voice, right?
Absolutely.
Hello.
Indeed.
Yeah, listen to those smooth South African tones.
After you are, man. Yes, this.
It was one of those things, actually. I was sitting there thinking, how often are you on stuff, Roger?
I'm on the podcast every week.
Yeah.
And then obviously for Lords and Legends, I'll be getting more involved then because I'm not behind the camera for that. Obviously for DRPA stuff, I was behind the camera for many years. Maybe, I don't know, 14 years. Yeah, the workshop included, yeah.
He's moving forward to take his rightful place.
There's an army in front of the camera.
It's actually been quite a cathartic thing for me to see Roger taking a bit more centre stage with this because for how long has it been? 14 years, Rog? We started in 2013, didn't we?
2013, yeah.
Yeah. So Roger was like the first guy in the TV studio at Games Workshop and set it up and had the idea for doing the painting tutorials. And I kind of came in as his presenter, and we've been a team doing this ever since, haven't we? And
for a long time.
The camera, because I'm in front of the camera, I get seen all the time, but really it has been a team effort the whole way.
Yeah.
This podcast has been meaning to happen since basically you started with Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy. So we're finally here. How long ago was that? When did you start up?
Oh,
I remember.
January 6 years ago, January 2020. Yeah, we left workshop in 2019, Christmas 2019, and then we started it. We went live. I think it was in March of 2020.
Yeah, it was the week of the first lockdowns for COVID.
What
Do you remember that? We were like, we've been working so hard for like a year, hadn't we?
Yeah, we were. Yeah,
happened, and we were like, oh god, has this killed us?
Killed before we even started.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Interestingly, looking back at it now, was it almost not the perfect thing to happen, but was it just timing worked out?
Probably.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, isn't it, Rog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, I remember people didn't know what they were going to be doing for getting paid because everyone was being told to stay at home, and everyone started tightening their belts, and we didn't know then if that meant any sort of spending on hobby would just get cut off. But it was kind of the opposite, wasn't it, Rog?
It was, yeah. I mean, the whole hobby industry, no matter what it was, if it was wargaming, music, drawing, art, whatever, it did really well out of COVID, you know? I mean, you couldn't even buy guitars from guitar shops that were selling out, or, you struggled to buy art paper and things like that, like oil paints and stuff from shops and Hobbycraft and places like that, because people had nothing to do, so they just went into hobby mode. I mean, it's why Games Workshop at the moment, is doing so well. It's still from that.
It's that unknown, though, of course, with that when it was kicking off.
Yes.
I mean, for you who put in a year's worth of work at the big moment, you think this is it, and for that to coincide with what is, I think, undeniably a fairly monumental event, that must have been pretty intense. Like you say, that people actually turned out to be pretty good for hobbies. I know of one person who was quite vocal about the fact that they'd sold off all their Games Workshop shares at that time, thinking, this is it for a lot of this, and rather publicly regrets that decision as a decision. But for someone who's put in a year's worth of work, that must have been a pretty dicey feeling. But
yeah,
but it did go the way that it did.
I mean, the scary part was we'd given up our careers at Workshop. I'd been there for almost 20 years, done for over 10 years, and it was a risky venture, and we knew we had 6 months to make it work. So we had kind of cashed in our share save and all that sort of stuff, and we had money in the bank to keep us going for X amount of months, for like 6 months. So we knew we had basically 3 months to learn how to do a lot of stuff, like learn how to build a website, how to build a membership site. We had to make all the tutorials. We had to try and change it a bit, and just try and make a lot of content to launch with. And then, of course, on the morning of launch, the website crashed because we had so much traffic.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. I forget about that because that was also quite a traumatic experience. Link up all the members and their accounts.
That was, yeah. I think in the history of the DRPA, that was one of the most, if not the most stressful few hours, because we didn't know. We're not IT guys, I mean, I taught myself how to build a website on WordPress, which and stuff like that, and we had to get onto the hosting guys and go, we don't know what's happened, and they had to look at it. We've had so much traffic, it's gone down, we'll have to migrate you. So they had to migrate us to a new server for a few hours, but in that time people had signed up, so the next month their payments weren't going through, and and all this stuff. So it took us about 6 months to get that steady. And it took a long time.
Yeah, we had to track every member, didn't we? We had a spreadsheet for it where we were tagging them all together, because wasn't it charging them twice or something?
No, it wasn't that. It was no. Yeah, some people weren't getting their payments, weren't renewing because they hadn't gone through the PayPal or Stripe properly. It was just weird stuff like that. So we had to monitor, but we got it done.
Wow. Yeah. Timing is everything, right?
We got lucky.
Having the ability to be where you were at that time and to handle all that. And it's weird that board games particularly, they've always done well in recessions.
So it's war games as well.
They go back to things that have value, that holds, but also particularly at that time, I think mental health was a major thing that people were like, I need to do something. And I don't think anyone got anywhere as near as much stuff painted as they thought they would, but but there was a lot of refuge taken in whatever hobby you had.
Yeah. Well, I remember I somewhat ran out of steam from hobby stuff during that time, because I thought at first, like, oh, great, okay, so that's some more time to get things done. But I mean, Roger and I still had to do stuff, we carefully and all. We still had to make videos. But I remember just suddenly trying to like cram in loads of things to complete some projects, and then I hit a point where I was like, why am I doing this? Because I can't actually meet up with anyone to play anyway. Sure. And then I didn't paint any armies for quite a long time, did I, Rog?
No, you didn't. No.
Yeah. It wasn't until some mates that I do reenactment with, we all got into Flames of War. It wasn't until then that I actually properly got painting again for myself.
Yeah. It was a strange one as well, because it also coincided, of course, with what I suppose you could say was a rather rapid maturing, perhaps, of everyone having the kind of infrastructure to have video calls and videos and all of everything that went with it. I mean, particularly interactive video calls. So, as you say, I mean, what we were doing, my groups of friends of ours were doing hangout and paints kind of thing, just because it was something you need up and just do.
Yeah.
No. You're a significant influence, Greg. You were too popular by half.
I was working.
Couldn't have your presence there.
That's all. Cool. So 6 years ago, scary time. I can imagine. How quickly did you feel settled within what you were doing? Because I mean, from the outside looking in, you masked any panic underneath really well.
I wouldn't say panic. Would you agree, Roger? It's more like you had the task in front of you and you had to commit to it.
Sure.
Because like Roger says, we knew we wouldn't be able to go back to Games Workshop, and it wasn't like it was bad blood or anything like that. It's just like it's it's a company that's got quite a strong community about it, and if you walk away from it, it is a bit of a line that you cross. So we had to totally commit to what we were doing and make it work. So there was never really any thought or panicking or anything. We just sort of carved up the jobs between ourselves, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
There's something about it's quite a few of these sort of advice books that one reads at different times that say that is valuable to do that, to not have that ability to perhaps step back or otherwise, while the safety net is quite appealing. That total commitment, that total commitment is often the route to where it does particularly work for people. So in some ways that might have been a sort of blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think, like I said, we knew we had to make it work, and I think after the first month we knew we were okay.
Sure.
The first month is always how do people, are they going to like what we've done and stuff like that, and we were just fortunate that it worked and it carried on growing from there.
Yeah, and the support we had was quite extraordinary, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
so many people came over to support us, because I suppose when we left workshop, we saw there was a lot of conversation about it online, and it was really quite moving that people wanted to see us do well. So it was about a month, and then we felt okay, and we've just been building it since then, really, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
I think maybe it sounds like I'm blowing smoke here, but I think you, Duncan, you always came across very genuine on the videos in GW, and I know from meeting you and Roger as well at events and things like that, there was always it was always genuine. I think genuine's the right term, and I think online particularly.
Yeah.
It's like I'd be interested to hear what Rog says. I suppose the first time you've really heard a question like this, Rog, been asked you away. For me, it's like so when the TV stuff started, I was literally I just came in. Roger and I basically got on really well on doing this DVD, and so when he set up doing the tutorial stuff, I was a natural fit to come in to do the presentation. Now it wasn't like I just walked into it. There was our application process, and I did have to work hard on it. I did my homework and things. I mean, I can remember cooking dinner at night and basically narrating what I was doing as if I was presenting a video, to try and practice it. But it took off because it was early YouTube days, and I don't think anyone was really prepared for what sort of direction it would go. So for me, it's been kind of like riding the dragon, I guess is the best way to describe it. And it's all Roger's fault. So.
All right.
That's all right. So yeah, it's been an odd experience, but one that I've been very lucky and very blessed to be in. And it wasn't, as I say, it's not really what I signed up for, but I did always enjoy in all my years in retail and things. I always enjoyed helping unlock hobby stuff for people, because when I was a kid, I was very introverted and shy, and I was really nervous about asking questions. So it took me a long time to actually learn this stuff. And I've seen people get put off or embarrassed about the things they've painted, and I think that's a real shame because it's a wonderful hobby and I want people to be able to enjoy it. So I've just always been lucky to be on bigger and bigger platforms able to do that. So I just try and keep my feet firmly on the ground, and Roger well knows if it ever goes to my head, he's supposed to smack me around the head, right, and tell me what for. That's right. That's our promise to each other.
There was a fabulous video I remember that poked fun at that somewhat. I remember you did the one where it was about it was just during one of the new Knights releases, I think it was, and you came in and like, don't you know who I am? I'm Two Thin Coats, and it was all that, and I thought that was very effective because obviously it was sending up what you had, what that reputation kind of had. I had never occurred to me about that, what a grounding being in retail would have been about that, because that must have been a really interesting thing, because to hear you say that you'd seen people get uncomfortable or embarrassed or whatever about what they'd done or painted, that hadn't really twigged that, and that must have been that's a very valuable experience leading into that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an example that comes to mind. It's not from painting, but it's from gaming. And so there was this lad who came into the shop on it's like a bank holiday Monday, where we do these little staff versus customer tournaments, and the shop was really busy at the time. So this lad came in to play his first game with his Tau army and ended up getting paired up against one of the regulars in the store, and the regular completely crushed him in this game, and I could see he was really embarrassed about it, and basically packed up and left. And I tried to get him to play a game against me afterwards, like, I'll show you a proper game, we'll have a bit more of a casual thing about it, because it was clearly a big deal for him to do it, but no, he just left and I didn't see him again. And that stuck with me, in that a bad experience can put someone off something that they would otherwise really love.
Yeah.
So we're very committed about that sort of thing, aren't we, Rog? And I think we're lucky, like right from the start, you had that same idea. That's what you wanted to achieve as well with all these videos.
That was
barriers.
Yeah, that was the point of the videos when I approached my manager to do them. In fact, when I did my show reel to get the job, I actually made a painting video, and I remember painting a blood angel for it. Just as a proof of concept, and obviously stuck with my manager. And then I said I had this idea, I want to be able to do this, and I think it could do quite well. And he let me try it, and Duncan came in and we practiced a bit. We did a rough proof of concept, and he approved it, and then the whole process started. But the original idea was always, what we didn't want to do was the classic old, White Dwarf or thing where you've got the magic phase. You got your base coat, your wash, your layer, and then you got a stunning model with this huge gap missing, and you go, how do you jump from that? So the videos were always meant to be just to teach people, to show them, because you learn a lot better when you can see something done. Most people can, especially something like this, because how do you thin your paint? How do you use your palette? How do you hold your brush? How do you do any of this stuff? So the general idea was that it was the next best thing to having somebody standing over your shoulder and showing you the idea.
We actually, Howard and I talked about this very recently on a show, about how YouTube videos are brilliant, but there's a lot of assumed knowledge that I didn't have, because I learned to paint in the GW store. And we were very much talking about that very thing. And I think that's where you guys are genuine. Like, I've seen videos of people, I won't name any names, I probably can't even remember their names, and how do you put it? It's not quite you see the grift, but you see the process, like if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, like just do this. It's easy, and then do something phenomenal.
Yeah. It's taken them 10,000 hours to learn that,
Sure.
Oh yeah, we did have we were quite lucky in our early days that our manager at the time he was good with giving you free rein, wasn't he, Rog? Like
Yes, he was.
A lot of openness.
Yeah.
Because in the studio there certainly was a tendency, and this isn't true for all the painters there. Like nowadays, I can't speak to it, of course, because we've not been there for 6 years. But in guides of the past, you would have this tendency to have a few white lies said, you might say, in the last stage of the step-by-step guide, just like Roger was pointing out. And the reason is because the person doing that content has a pressure on them to make it look really good for the publication. And so it's not necessarily them trying to show off, although, that certainly can happen.
There was some of that, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But that's having that incentive is there, and it naturally pushes people towards doing that sort of thing. And then that means when you follow the guide, as when you don't know, things will not look right, and you don't understand why. And I definitely went through that for quite a long time. I couldn't understand why my miniatures didn't look the same when I'm reading a guide of, now highlight the red with what was the bone? Not bleach bone. That was it. I like red with bleach bone. I'm like, what? I don't understand. And what they meant was to mix it, but it's just assumed knowledge that wasn't brought up at all. But because early days, the only person watching our stuff really was our manager, we were able to show it very honestly and very raw. So people realized halfway through the process when the model looks ugly, that's completely normal. And it's the photographs that would appear in the book that had been adjusted to make them look nice. But what they'd got all along was actually exactly what I had. And then that pushed them through that barrier, and all of a sudden they're getting results. So that was a huge step. So we were lucky not to have all these eyes on us. And once that concept had then been proven, you couldn't put that genie back in the lamp, right?
No.
Yeah. From that point on, we were almost like holding the banner, weren't we, Roger? I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cat's out of the bag now.
You go back another decade, and they weren't even using the paints they said they used.
Yes.
So what chance do you have, really? So you've come in and you've set up, and you're going, good guns. We're at a point. The whole YouTube thing just starts to, the painting videos particularly, start to really expand. Did any of that affect you at all, or were you did you have a a community that was just continually growing with you?
Yeah, I mean, to us, we didn't look at it that way. We were just we were so excited. This is back even in workshop days. We were just excited to paint a new miniature come out and just hope that people liked it, because we never spoke with the community in any way or form. This was pre-marketing days. So we were happy just to, and it was a job for us. We were happy to make content. And we knew we were getting a lot. We knew people liked it. We knew that it helped the retail guys a lot as well, because if somebody could paint it, they could just point it towards the YouTube channel, and it would help them. And it changed a lot. I mean, it's because of that part of that thing that the whole marketing department took over. Came and took over from what we were doing. So it was weird for us. It was just this week we're doing this model, let's do that, and we just did it. It's that's what we did. It was just our job, really.
Sure.
Yeah, but we try to make it as best as we could every time. Try and put in new techniques if we could. But obviously, you got to keep with the company message.
Yeah. So no mixing, and use the paints as intended, and the set color schemes and all this stuff. Yeah.
Once you've separated and you've set up the painting academy, and you've had this great start and pushing through. I mean, we're at a point now where you've employed Natalie as well.
Yes.
Has that been your path through that? Because I think you look at the landscape now to 6 years ago, have you had any real challenges with that, or have you just been doing your thing and it's been working fine?
No, we're always trying to think 3 or 4 steps ahead, and we're always looking at potential outcomes, like a game of chess. And we've got a plan that we stick to, and we'll adapt it if we need to. But we've had a plan for a long time that we're trying to stick to. And that's the reason why Death Reaper Games came along.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
get
it was
that
like
in a bit.
that was
Yeah.
like a long term thing. But
Sure, I
yeah,
would, so it's been in the background for waiting for its opportunity.
oh yeah,
Yes.
Oh, excellent.
oh
That's
yeah,
cool.
but yeah, we've had in terms of our growth, each time we've hit a point where we realise that there's too much that we need to do that we can't do because it's like trying to spin too many plates.
Yeah.
So like early days, for example, when it came to email stuff, I would do that, but it's just too much, and I couldn't do that at the same time as doing the content and preparing the content, and responding to things on social media. So that's when we hired Bernice, who took over a lot of those responsibilities from me, so that I could then concentrate on the thing that I do. And it's been like a steady expansion like that, hasn't it, Rog?
I mean, she also came and took over things like the accounts from me,
Sure.
Exactly.
So it gets to the point where you just can't do anymore, and you want to do more to grow.
Yeah.
So you've got to try and bring somebody in to try and cover some of that stuff to free you up to be able to, because what we also promised ourselves, we wouldn't burn out doing it.
Yeah. Yes.
We want it to be fun. It's supposed to be a fun experience. So we're very, very, very aware of that.
I have visions of Duncan walking through Adepticon when you say that. Looking like a hollow man.
Looking exhausted.
Absolutely exhausted. Bless you. So obviously, with a plan, with that going on, we've had some big names kind of leave GW, particularly like Peachy has come out and started off great guns, and Louise. Did any of that? Were you always focused on what your plan was? And did you see an effect from any of that, or was it a case of, a rising tide lifts all boats?
I'm not really sure. I mean, we can't really speak for them, to be honest.
No.
For Roger and
No,
me, it was about
absolutely.
we wanted to create a stable business which could provide a good working experience for us, and as time's gone on, for others as well. We don't really view ourselves as a YouTuber in that way. We kind of view ourselves as providing a service. I guess. Is that fair to say, Roger?
Yes, it is. Yeah. I think like a lot of people that kind of start their YouTube channel, it's often about trying to sell themselves as a thing. Where we're trying to sell a package, if that makes sense. The DRPA was a place where you could come and learn exactly how to paint. You didn't have to go on YouTube. You could come and get everything you wanted there and build a community and stuff. So that's what we wanted to do. And the other guys who've left, or not just Louise and Peach, but other people who've tried stuff, and then I think they are they often make quite a few entertainment style videos. They go down that route where we see ourselves more as educational. We want to teach people how to paint. Nothing's. We get a lot of letters from people and emails, even letters, to be honest, of people just saying that we've taught them how to paint. They want to say thank you, or we've helped them through a hard time, stuff like that. Where there might be just like quite a lot of military people actually contact us, and we do a bit of work with them, saying that it's helped them through PTSD and stuff like that. Which is it's really great. And we have all ages from young kids who enjoy watching the painting videos and trying to learn, to even met a customer who's in his 70s at UK Games Expo, who was just saying thank you for teaching him and giving him the ability to do something he thought he couldn't do.
That's awesome.
That's fascinating. I mean, to hear that, I think that's an entirely accurate reflection. Unnecessarily just to hear that was your aim, because I think that's a real key distinction as we start, as Greg's pointing out. There's this rise of people who are giving that a go and setting up on their own, and often you see people there, and this isn't exclusive to people who are ex-GW or otherwise, it's just people who are interested in the hobby, in inverted commas.
Yeah.
There's often you're watching and investing in some cases in those because of the people that they are, and you're interested in their take on it or otherwise. Very interesting that you've gone down quite a distinctly different route, and you've stayed core to that, of saying we're providing a service. That's a really succinct way of putting it, and I hadn't actually twigged that until you said that. And I think that comes across really well.
It was our aim, from the beginning, to do that. It's it's important that for us that the the DRPA lasts as long as it can, and we can just keep making great copy. We've got over 540 odd videos now on the academy.
Blimey.
Is that many now?
It's about that. It's about that now. So if you want to learn how to paint, you can learn. There's everything you want. You can learn on there, and we add new content every week. But our core thing was just to try and make a place where people could come and get all the knowledge they needed to for their hobby. We will do advanced stuff now, more advanced type tutorials, and stuff like that. But
we treat every video like a as its own thing, don't we? We
do
with it, unless it is an advanced video, in which case that sort of thing's not quite so important. But it's also not about what we want, right? So there are some miniatures I like more than others. There are some ranges I like more than others. But when it comes to doing a video on a particular subject, that is irrelevant because that model is the star of the show, and there's going to be the person who's watching it wants to learn about that thing. So it's always 110% for each one. To make it as a what we get at the end of it, we want that to be as achievable as possible for people following the video. And it is magic then when you see someone has followed the guide and they've got exactly the same result as you, then it's like, we did a good job on that one and we can feel pleased with ourselves.
Yeah, the thing was for us as well, because from experience in talking to people and stuff, they a long time ago, and there was a lot of gatekeeping in painting, especially the high end stuff, and people didn't want to give away their tricks. It was almost like a magician. So it was, for us, it was important to break a lot of that down, and YouTube has allowed that. And then there's some great people out there like Angel Heraldez and Jose Da Vinci, who are incredible painters. Two Spanish guys, lovely chaps as well.
Yeah.
And they do teach more high end painting, but they also understand they're there to teach. It's not often the case is there to show look how good I am at painting all the time. And that's what sometimes becomes entertainment and not education, because what happens then is you are missing stages. You're like, well, you're not showing me how to perhaps texture that leather. You just put in the brush there. Like, how do I control the brush? How much paint do I put on? Why do I need to mix the colors? Because I'm never going to get it the same if I did it on another character's coat in the same unit, for instance, or the same army. So it's all these questions all the time. Yeah, it's
a fundamental.
There's often another dimension to it as well, isn't? Oh, sorry.
No, please carry on.
I was just to add on to what I was just saying. There's often another dimension to it too, in that there's the way, the order in which you do things. Is actually quite important, because it makes the process easier if you do things in a certain order. And we did find at workshop a time did start happening when we were being told what order to do these things, and we pushed back by saying that makes it harder. So it's nice to have the freedom that we can go out that way.
Yeah.
But it also means that we can tackle things that are the difficulties that are beyond just the colours and the techniques. So, for example, doing an Imperial Fist miniature, actually painting the yellow power armour is not that difficult when you understand the process of which to go for. But what is difficult is the motor control required to not make mistakes with darker colours later on. So when we're doing an Imperial Fist, we can on purpose make a mistake, and then we can show in real time how to fix it. And that sort of stuff is really powerful.
Absolutely. And again, very recently we had Neil Hollis on, and we were talking about things like contrast paints. And the key to contrast paints is putting the paint exactly where you need to put it.
Yes.
Because the mistakes are that much harder to. It's exactly that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I'll leave that. Don't worry about that. It's great because, let's say DRPA has been going 6 years. You're expanding, which is always good to see. Paint lines, was that part of the plan, or was that something that happened?
That's a funny one.
Yeah.
It was part of our plan, but in the future.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
we've got not quite big either.
Yeah, because what do we know about paints? But we got approached by a guy called Bob Watts, who is quite a veteran in the wargaming industry. He created Warzone, didn't he, Duncan, if I remember correctly?
Yeah. He's actually quite a overarching figure. He's been involved in a lot of things that a lot of people probably aren't aware that he was there for.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, he's been with Games Workshop. He's created what was that card game he made that Games Workshop bought?
Oh, it was the
Sabretooth, yeah, he had that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He had a lot of things. He worked for Wizards of the Coast. He worked for Privateer Press.
Yeah,
and when he
ran
left
Roll
Privateer,
Party.
yeah, he did Roll Party. Yeah. He also then he left them to start his own business, which was Transatlantis Games, and he wanted to do a paint line because he created P3 paints, from what I understand. He was part of the team that did that.
Right.
So he had the contacts and everything, and so he thought, I'll do a paint line first, and then he had these ideas festering for a game that he wanted to make, or one or two games actually, and he approached us and said, do you guys want to get on board with this? And Duncan and I spoke about it over the weekend and stuff, and eventually we said to him, yeah, we can do it under certain conditions. We'll license you our brand that we can do, but if we're putting our name on something, we want to design the colors, we want to design the paint. We need to. We're not approving anything until we're happy with it, with the paint. We have to make sure it's the best we can make. Because if we are going to put our name on that, it has to be, the best we can do. And he was all up for it, wasn't he, Dunk?
Yeah, he basically bit our hand off at that because we came. His original idea was more like a color wheel and a random selection of colors, and we came back saying, "Well, what if we had a triad system because people can use that then to learn what colors will work and how they can highlight things?" And he was like, "That sounds amazing. Okay, how many paints do you want?" And we were like, 30? And he's like, okay, is that enough? Are you sure? And we were like, well, it kind of fills out quite quickly with these triad things because then there's only basically 10 colors. So maybe a few more. Is 48 okay? Yeah, it could be. But there's these other ones we thought about, and it just expanded to 60. So that's when you look at the paint rack. If you look at how the paints are laid out, the metallics appear like 2/3 of the way through, and that's because originally they were the end colors, and then the other ones expanded on the end after that.
Amazing.
Yeah, they were phenomenal to work with, because so Bob took that very seriously, understood the implications that we're putting our reputation to it. So during the development of it, they gave us quite free reign on choosing things, and we got to go to the factory, didn't we, Roger? And actually,
we did, yeah. Worked in the labs and everything, yeah.
Yeah, and it'd be a case of, right, so we've got this yellow, we think it's really nice, but it's not opaque enough. What can you do? And the chemist, he'd say things, I didn't really understand, but he did it. And then the paint came back and it was better. It's like, oh, can you make it smoother? And then he'd do more stuff. I mean, back and forth. And eventually we ended up with the result that we had. Now, unbeknownst to us, we were basically requesting expensive ingredients all the time. We didn't really know.
Expensive for a reason, yeah.
Yeah, well,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. But it always leaves us with a predicament when explaining to people why the paints are good, because it's like, yeah, the colours are really nice, but if you use them, you'll find that they make applying the paint easier because the paint flows easier because it's got all this stuff in it that makes that happen. And when people try it, they suddenly go, oh, and that's a common thing we get at shows. People come up to us and say they bought our paints, and all of a sudden they're finding their painting is easier. So that's great, really.
Not the last time
about that recently. We talked to Greg and I talked about that, where I picked up a follower scheme, one that I'd had before and one that I'd picked up from and revised. And when you, particularly as your responsibilities increase as an individual, and the time drops dramatically, you manage to carve out some time. You think, I'm going to actually get to use the airbrush tonight. I've been looking forward to this for a week. I'm looking forward to this. And you go and you use a paint and you use it in a particular way, and it doesn't work. And then you spend that hour that was going to be your only hour for the week cleaning the airbrush because it's clogged every time you've used it because the paint has not behaved as you might have otherwise expected. That becomes increasingly important, I find, as I become an old man.
It really does.
It's not just a beginner's thing, it's that dependability. And I think that's something that you really achieved with that paint range. The consistency across the range is extraordinary.
It's not the age, Howard. It's the number of kids.
I mean, it's the team at Transatlantis Games. They've been great. I mean, we were all shocked at how well the Kickstarter did. Duncan and I, we were just begging, like, please make. I don't care how long it takes. Just make the minimum amount, because we didn't want to have egg on our face, right?
It's worth pointing out. It's easy in hindsight to go, "Oh, of course it'd do great," but at the time you don't know. Like,
no way.
We didn't know if this would work. It was quite an intense time, wasn't it, Rog?
It was, yeah. But it reached targets in like 12 minutes or something, and we were watching it. And we were just like, "Oh my god, okay, where does this end?"
We were filming it and sending the video to our parents, weren't we?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I just couldn't believe it how well it did.
what was incredible at the time too is that I saw I just stumbled on people talking about it online, and lots of the posts were saying that they backed it because they really liked us and we taught them how to paint and they wanted to say thank you, and that was an immensely humbling experience.
It was humbling, that, yeah.
Yeah, and also pressure's on then, like, right, we can't let them down now.
It's a very, you guys will have had a very different experience from the guys on the outside. Kind of, we can look at what's going on with you, and we can see, as I said at the start, you're genuine good people, and people want to support good people who are trying to do the right things and trying to make the best paint possible that you can make. People appreciate that and will go with it. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's testament to the way you've run the Paint Academy as much as anything. So I think you can take a bit of a pat on the back for that. I want to move on because we're running out of time. That's the only reason.
No worries.
Had we had you guys on a couple of years ago, we could have talked most of this stuff and then done that. I'll hold my hands up on that one. Eventually, we get to Lords and Legends, the Void Shadow Requiem.
Yeah.
So, tell us, give us the elevator pitch.
Oh, holy crap, where to start, right? Go for it, Rog.
Yeah.
Spotlight on you.
Okay, so we was just having our segue about talking about the first Kickstarter. When we did that, Bob said to us, "Oh, you guys can make some miniatures if you want. We need stretch goals." So we designed some characters just for fun, just let's put these guys out here. It's a bit of fun. Not taking it seriously, just enjoying it. Obviously, we had Sir Coates as our mascot, so he had to be in there. We made a armored version of the studio dog, which is Gizmo, which is my puggy, because we used to work from home. So he would be with us all the time, and he'd sit on Duncan's lap when he was painting and stuff. So we thought, we'll do that. People like dogs. And then we made some other characters, like a little bit of a story, just between us for fun, Yeah. And about 3 years ago, probably, I think, maybe the first or second time we went to LVO, on the last day. Second time, yeah, we were waiting for our flight back to the UK, and we were walking on the strip, and we pulled over to a coffee shop, and we started chatting about it, and we realized, like, hey, we do want to make something. We think it's the next place to go for the Academy. We want to do something. Why don't we look at this again? And we started throwing some ideas around and things like that, and it became the seed of Lords and Legends, really. We knew we wanted to take these characters, and people seemed to like them, so we could potentially do something with them. We knew we wanted to make a skirmish game. That was also decided really early on. And then, it kind of just settled for a year. And then, like, I got bored one evening, and I just couldn't get in the zone to do anything. I didn't want to play a computer game or paint or anything. So I started to work on the game in the background. Did it for a few months, wrote up some rules and all that sort of stuff, and some basic lore and stuff. And then I showed it off to the guys at work. I set it all up one morning, got in early, and showed the guys, and they seemed to enjoy it. And that was the moment where Duncan and I decided, all right, let's do this properly now. We've got to start, so let's go for it. And we started from there. That was about 2 years ago. Actually, it was in April 2024 we did that. Yeah. So we've been working on it. We brought in a guy called Jack to take over the video work, so I could focus on getting Lords and Legends started and set up and just get the ball rolling, really. And then we kind of took in our roles on that.
Yeah, you're sort of project manager, I guess, aren't you, Roger? That you've got your finger in lots of pies with it.
Yeah.
You're also the one who's like doing all the lore for it, and you talk to all the artists, commissioning them, getting the concept art, trying to get the video.
Yeah.
There's like a whole load of things going on. Whereas I, meanwhile, start to find my niche in just the rule stuff, didn't I?
Yeah. You took the first version 1.0. And reworked them, and we were lucky enough that we could get some really good a really good games designer to kind of sense check what we were doing after what Dunk was doing after a bit of time. And he gave us some really good feedback and got us some really interesting things to think about.
Yeah,
and we took it from there, and we kind of built it up to where it is today.
Roger, do you have game design experience? Do you have writing experience, or was this?
No, like anything I do, if I'm going to do it, I'll figure it out. I just throw myself at it with everything, Like
it was quite for the process of honing it, it's been quite a intense process, hasn't it? Because
it has.
when you start out, so the thing I've learned about games design is when you begin the thing, the final result rarely looks just like it, because you have to keep on attacking it in a way. You have to keep on cutting at it to make sure it's got that central like nugget, of its soul. I guess has to be the thing, and you got to find what that is. And it means that it changed a fair amount, but there were a few key things that kept consistent because they were like the little sparks that made it what it is. So the initial thing Roger did, because it was quite outside the box thinking, is having this event deck in the game, and that started out as a this set of cards that all did things during the battle, like random things. You didn't really know what they were going to do, and they spiced things up. And that's through a conversation with the consultant, that really started to cement down into a thing tied directly into the lore that Roger in that this deck, the core like global events, we call them, are things that are quite sort of standard and can happen anywhere in the world. But to add a bit of spice to it, 4 of the cards in the deck would change based upon what location that you're in, or even things that are happening. And so we're starting out with 4 of those represented, but the sky's the limit as to what more you can add in. So it means that if you're fighting in one location, it can be like sort of rainfall happens, and it gives the flavour of what that place is like. But in another place, a more dangerous place, it could be like a volcanic eruption. So that just evolved over time. And as I say, it was a sometimes a painful process of understanding, like, well, I like that thing, but actually it's starting to cause problems, and then you have to cut it. But I think it's worth it because the final result is actually turning out to be something really, really solid.
It is, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great you the most dangerous thing you can do when you're working on something like this is just you got to be able to let go and change things.
Got to kill your darlings.
You have to kill your darlings. It's and luckily, Duncan and I've been able to do that. We've changed a lot of stuff from when it over the 2 years to try and make the best thing we can. And we've been lucky enough that we've been able to get some really talented people on board as well to help out here and there, and to we've got a good set of game testers that are continuously testing the stuff, and we try to get a nice mix of different levels, because we are doing a narrative game, but we want that different mix of levels for people to try and break the game.
Well, it's kind of a misconception with narrative games that the rules aren't as important, and yet weirdly having clear, concise rules to then build a narrative around and build scenarios and do crazier things, they almost need the core set of rules to be so sturdy that you can add on, plug in, change things without breaking the game.
It's a really important thing that you have to really hack at this core engine, this gameplay loop, so it becomes as simple a thing as possible, but it's got lots of hooks essentially that you can hang extra things on. So the game is designed that the pure back and forth with you and your opponent is very quick, but it's up to you to explore what you can hang on to that with your army choices and your spell choices and things. And actually you can start hitting some surprising depth, even more so than what we expected, because the playtesters have started doing things that we didn't really imagine happening.
Which is what you want,
Yeah, particularly with the undead. And I find when I was at Expo, I found the clearest way of explaining this to people is like, if you're playing the undead, it's like playing the blue deck in Magic the Gathering, where you can do all sorts of tricksy, annoying things. And when the player gets it, you can suddenly see the cogs turning and they start doing stuff. And it's like, oh, I didn't think you'd do that, but that's cool. That's been really exciting to see that happen.
It has, yeah.
So what kind of size? So we're talking, it's a game, you've got a legend, heroes and minions.
Yes.
What kind of size forces will people be using?
So the game's played on a 3x3 table, right? So we tried originally the original rules 101. We toyed with a 2x2 table. But we realized that you were getting into combat quite quickly and couldn't move around, so we kind of widened it a bit and made it to 3x3, which is spot on.
There was no maneuver potential, and models could catch their target like in a turn. So we had to spread it out a bit.
So like you said earlier, the you've got heroes, you've got legends, heroes, and minions. And the idea of your army building is you've got to take one legend, and then it's up to you how you fill up your warband. And it's around, depending what you take, between 7 and 12. So 12 will probably be like the goblins, and 7 or 8 to be the humans or the void shadow. But then, of course, as I said to other people before, we're also looking at doing trolls and adding those in, so monsters are part of it. So you could have a warband of 4 trolls, for instance, that would equal 100 points.
Yeah.
So
it's very, very flexible, and especially early days, because you make the most of what you've got available. So so within these different larger allegiances, you can mix and match quite a bit, and you can pull some in from other ones too. But if you build your army to a theme, you get a little reward for the rules, and it's not like a huge thing, but it's just an encouraging thing. But something that's not going to be a punishment if you decide to mix things up a little bit. So you could have a bunch of humans with some dwarves or handguns if you wanted to, or you could focus right down and do one particular thing, and that's the style that I like to go for. But other people who've tried it definitely want to mix and match a little bit. To give a little idea of what a typical force would be like, I prefer to go a bit minion heavy on my selections. So I'd have Sir Coates leading the army, and he'd be backed up by Squire Aymer, and then like another support piece that I'd probably substitute in based upon what sort of strategy I want to do. And then after that, I'd get about 6 soldiers or so, and that'd bring up to a full force. And the soldiers are flexible in that you can choose different weapons that can then do different things against different opponents. Right? So part of your army building is to work around that, and the humans of Ravenwold are very good at that flexibility, whereas the other factions aren't so much. So that's what, 9 figures? That's kind of the force I've got in mind, is now we're starting to get out the real thing starting to turn up, But Roger, on the other hand, I know when he's playing as the goodies, you like having lots of characters, don't you? You go very
I'll go hero heavy,
Yeah, so Roger's army tends to be smaller, but the game has a mechanic in it so that as it works on alternating activations, if you are heavily outnumbered by your opponent, you can pass your turn so that you don't end up with the opponent having tons of activations left over the end of the turn. So we've put these little fail-safes in to balance things out a little bit to make it as so you can do what you want, basically. We don't want to restrict people from getting the miniatures they like.
Awesome. Sounds really good.
Sounds like it's pitched at that ideal level to be able to. I mean, there's a lot of people picking up these games. I know there's a lot of importance in the part of the world I live, so where people are keen to have games they could play in the pub, games they could play at each other's houses. They haven't necessarily, despite the fact reasonably well off here in London for games, cafes and clubs and things. It's still quite nice to be able to not have to commit to either traveling to those or not having to do regular clubs and things. So you're wanting to play on your home kitchen table. You're wanting to play at a pub if you're working in town, etc. It's hitting that. The skirmish games have seem to have a bit of a renaissance at the moment, and that's very much the thing you're tapping into by the sound of it. And it sounds like that's going to work quite well.
I think we've been very aware of what our DRPA customers and that what they look for, and with all our experience in the wargaming industry, we've absorbed a lot of lessons along the way. And one of the things that you always see is say for Games Workshop, for example, the or 40K, people buy a lot of stuff but they never finish painting it, and they feel they do have their guilt list, and it feels like a massive momentous task to go and paint 100 miniatures, for instance, where to go and paint 7 or 8 miniatures and then to add to your warband and change it and substitute it as you want is not a huge task. And when it came to the design language of the miniatures as well, we were very, very keen that they have to be not over detailed, because we do feel that modern miniatures are so over detailed, it becomes a challenge to paint. And speaking to a load of people over the UK Games Expo weekend, they're so happy the direction we've gone, because they now don't feel intimidated in painting a miniature. It's a lot of the great feedback we've had is that it's just the right amount of detail, which was by design. It was we knew what we were aiming for that, what we wanted to achieve, and luckily we got there.
And the narrative kind of bent, does that come from you two guys? I know obviously having seen Duncan talk about his gaming, that narrative is a part of what you like. Is that same for you, Roger?
Yeah, same for me. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. There's something, I mean, you guys will know this too. I mean, there's something magical about a lovely gaming board where you can see it and it fills a narrative in your head. The story starts to develop. You can imagine what's happening there. You can see it. With competitive gaming, now competitive gaming is another side of the hobby, right? There's people want to do that. That's awesome. That's what they do. But it has to be laid out in specific ways and very strict for certain things in competitions. And, that's what competitive gaming do. But what we like to do is, if you create a fantasy village, you maybe got some woods on the one side and a village on the other, and immediately a story starts to unfold. And you can imagine that. Is it an ambush? Are you beating each other, one coming out the woods, one walking into the woods? You just happen to meet halfway. There's just all these cool stories you can make. And with the event deck, it adds to that. And that was the original idea with the event deck, was to just give it a more of a narrative flavor that can, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes nothing. It can add an extra little element to the game that gets you to think. And we have found that it generates some amazing cinematic moments. We were game testing last night, and it was one of the most fun games I've seen of Lords of Legends getting played by people who've only ever played it 3 times. And they've really got the hang of it after 3 goes. And there were just some great moments, that just, it was just put a smile on my face to see that they were getting that from it.
Yeah. And they can sometimes really pop in at amusing moments. Like you can have one that gives for the turn. Both players get to select a miniature that gets to do an extra action. So instead of doing 2, they get to do 3, which can be a big thing. And but some of these cards, they will guide you towards what model it's going to be, and it's going to be like someone who's badly hurt, right? So last stand. Oh, cool. Okay, so that soldier's badly injured. All of a sudden, has got an extra action point this turn. That gives them this narrative hook. This thing that happens.
Yeah.
And it's like the extra in the movie all of a sudden doing something awesome and everyone remembering them.
Yeah, exactly. And the way the game's designed as well, even though we got minions, they can often become the hero of the game.
Oh yeah.
And it's happened plenty of times where an unknown lowly swordsman has taken on the Death Reaper and beaten him, or he's 2 guys are going to take on this raging skeletal force, and these 2 guys take him on, and one of them survives. He's got 1 hit point left, and he still takes out the main bad guy, and it's it's just cheers around, and everyone's speaking about it for days, and it's just what we wanted, really.
Yeah, that's right.
Really
and,
cool.
And a part of that, I guess, is that we don't we're not, I suppose, religiously pursuing the concept of balance on all the forces.
No, it's impossible.
Yeah, you can't really, unless every force is the same. But even then, someone's got to go first, right? I think we don't want to pursue that and start to sort of hollow it out, I guess. But what we are keen on is making sure it feels fair. So that whatever you select, you've got a good shot if you play well. So there's a lot of little tweaks and balances in amongst all the stats of things, like right down to the hit points, how many they've got, to try and get it so that you don't get those feel bad moments where you feel like it's out of your control. There's always something you can do. And it's like with the events too, there was times when some of the event cards would benefit one side and penalize another one. So one of the Ravenloft cards, for example, is the sun comes out, and it would be a bonus to the goodies and a penalty to undead. And players were like, "Oh, that doesn't feel fair," and it's like narratively it makes sense, but also there's that feel bad moment, and that's the problem. So that then had to be attacked and changed. So there's a lot of thought like that behind it.
I think the most important question for me is looking at the landing page for Death Reaper games. Is, are we going to have goblins riding cockerels?
Yeah. So that's one of the things we're working on right now is the core goblin set. And they're planned to be the first with some cavalry, but certainly not the last. And,
that was one of the first sketches I did, was for the some of the basic concept stuff, and then we passed it on to a real concept artist. But when we first discussed the game back in, I had this thing of like in my head of a goblin riding a chicken with a cauldron on his head, just because I thought it was funny. I thought, oh, really amazing miniature. You could, and it kind of built from there, didn't it? Like we started to throw in ideas like, I could raid farms and all this. And then I did some initial sketches for it, and I just brought a smile on my face. And we then decided, Doug came with some cool ideas we added in, and we decided then, like, oh, we won't just do a chicken, or let's have a goose. You know, because I know,
Yeah.
you know, a goose
We
is
want
an
to have a
angry
special
creature.
rule. Yeah,
They
we have a
are
special rule
evil,
called
yeah.
honk honk, don't we?
Yeah. And
Wow.
and then of course you've got, you know, a billy goat can also ride on a billy goat. So
Yeah.
you know, we try to add all of that and create the lore around the goblins around that, you know, because the goblins, the one army where you can just inject that little bit more humor,
Sure.
you know, and you can add all that character to them, which we're excited about. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a description for the way different things work. I keep forgetting what the exact phrase is, but in a more clunky way of saying it, basically each army is having a distinct flavour and they all operate in different ways and all add onto these hooks that I mentioned earlier in different ways. And the humans are purposely intended to be the all-arounders who don't particularly do anything crazy, but they don't do anything badly either. But the goblins, by comparison, they're the army to go for if you like having lots of numbers, because their playstyle relies upon you having lots of numbers and careful positioning. So actually they are a bit of a finesse force. When it comes to these cavalry models too, they're like fast cavalry, so they're very good at darting and doing damage and then running off. But if you're caught unawares or in a bad position, they can get taken down very easily. So that's the difficulty curve with them. But as we saw in playtesting, once a player clicks that, they're doing all sorts of daring raids with the cavalry, like sweeping in, hitting stuff, and then racing away. And then that weakens a particular target, doesn't it? So the main goblin force then goes in for them for the kill. It's been fascinating watching players react to this and enact it all.
And then we've also got dwarves coming out as well after the goblins, and those have been fun to do. And we got a friend of ours from workshop, he artist guy, he left, and we got him in as a concept artist. We freelanced him to say, look, we want to do some of this stuff, and he came up with some quite cool ideas for the dwarves, you know. So all I said to him was, we were doing the initial art direction, was like, I've got to have ale in it. It's got to be beer. It's a dwarf. I like ale, right? There's got to be a thing. And again, some of my initial early on concept sketches was a dwarf guy with a huge barrel on his back. And then Dunk came up with a really cool idea saying, oh, why don't we use the barrel? You can serve different ales, for instance, and it can give the dwarves a different effect, you know, on the battlefield. So, you know, we thought that was quite a cool mechanic to stick in. So we're still working on it, but you know, it's so far it's really fun to play.
Yeah,
you know, and dwarves are elite army too.
They are.
Yeah.
So talking again a bit, touching on the, I won't give too much away about how the thing is, but basically the core aspect of the dwarves is that they're more reliable than the other factions are. So in the game, there's little things you can do to trigger like bonuses and things, but you often have to declare them before the dice are rolled, whereas the dwarves are able to wait in many cases till after the dice are rolled and then influence it there. So the effect tends to be not so high, but you're able to precisely land it exactly where you want it, which makes them lethal when you understand when you should spend these abilities. They're quite an interesting army to paint. They operate, as you might imagine, with dwarves, very stoic and, you know, slow moving and tough and hard to hurt and stuff. But there is that finesse in them which the players really gelled with. You know.
And magic's a big thing in the game as well. It's been a lot of work on magic, and it's changed a lot from the initial ones. You know. You know, Dunk's done some great work on that.
Yeah, it was the magic, I think, is where it quite clearly has a bit of role-playing game aspect to it, in that you get to select your spells for your wizards. But we like the idea of having lots of options that you can choose from. So there's various different spheres, and wizards have access to particular ones, and you don't just have to bind spells from one of them. You can mix across multiple ones, but there's a bit of a price for doing that. So you can it's like a toolbox, and some of these operate in like really interesting ways. So one that I'm particularly fond of is chronomancy. Isn't that right, Rog?
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
So one of the core bits of the game is when you've activated the model, you put an activation marker on its profile so you know it's finished. But chronomancy can manipulate those activation markers and do stuff with them. It can also manipulate the event deck, so it can start. So the player who's doing it can basically start milling through the deck and bring out the cards they want to activate. So it's been really fun doing stuff like that and thinking outside the box for it. So I really hope players like it. We definitely try to make it as open and engaging as possible when it comes to all
absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds fun. Sounds really good. Yeah, we were watching that with interest. So yeah, that's deathreapergames.com. You can find, well, I suppose you're going to launch all the info there as it comes out and follow the YouTubes and In fact, yeah. So where are other places? So you've got Duncan Rhodes Paint Academy
Mm-hmm.
for all your videos. You put some on YouTube.
We do
Yep,
indeed.
yep.
As
Yes,
well.
there's many more on the website,
Well,
and
many
lots of
too,
very
yeah.
detailed ones too.
Absolutely. Anywhere else that we can find? You're on all the socials, aren't you?
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
As and where. Anything else that we're missing that we can talk about just before we go?
Well, we should say if you want to get paints too, we've got our web store. Is that
Oh.
shop.duncanrose.com, Rog? Is that right?
Yeah, shop / or shop
Yeah.
dot, yeah.
And
Yeah,
we didn't even touch on painting competitions. When's the next painting competition? Is that Beachhead?
Beachhead, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
It is Beachhead.
Yeah, next year.
Well, that is the next
Yeah,
one.
hoping-
Oh wow, that has
hoping to be
increased
there
in
next year.
popularity. That the crowds at the painting competition have increased considerably as that's grown, particularly at Beachhead, and that's one of my favourites.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite crazy to see the crowd at Games Expo. Woo!
Really?
Bet,
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
I was off getting ready to watch the football by then. Sorry. Yeah. It was a crazy time. But yeah, cool. Well, we won't hold you up any longer. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. It's been great.
We'll see you at the next event we see you at, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's great.
Perfect. Cheers.
All right, cheers.
Congratulations, you've made it to the end of another episode of The Imperial Truth. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the show and the chat with Roger and Duncan. Really good to have them on. I think my performance in that chat could be improved. I don't think it was my best one. I think they were great. Don't get me wrong. I think maybe some of the questions I asked I didn't phrase particularly well. We were kind of not quite the areas that I wanted to be in. That took some time, but that's down to me. So hold my hands up on that one. If you like the episode, please let us know. Please come and tell us if it's something you are interested in, and if you liked us going back to the start of the Journal Tacticas. We've got one more to do, I think, before we're up to date. So we will get on that one at some point. I'll talk to Howard when he gets back from his holiday, and yeah, we can go from there, and we'll try and give you a bit more of an update on our painting progress. I know we said a couple of months ago we'd try and be a bit more like what's the word? Have a bit more accountability on that front. So we'll try and do that for you guys. If you have any show topics you want us to discuss, if you have any questions for us, then please send them in. Greg at theimperialtruth.com is the best way to email me. We're on Facebook. You can find all these links in the show notes. You can find most of them in my link tree, which is on some of my socials, maybe not all of them. I might make a note of that just as we talk now to try and remember to do that. We keep saying we're busy all the time, like we didn't get much done. I think that's just life at the moment. I think that's just mine, Howard's life. So we need to plan a little bit better maybe around that. Yes, on Instagram, Imperial_Truth. Sorry, no, on X, Twitter, Imperial_Truth. And then I'm on Threads and Blue Sky and Instagram at Child of Fang. So you can come and on those three. It's obviously it's my stuff as well. So you will see pictures of my boy who's just got into Harry Potter. So you'll see pictures of him just as Harry Potter. Thanks to Emma. I have to put up with her listening to the books on repeat and him watching the films on repeat. But it could be worse, I suppose. If you are on those, Emma is doing, I'll shout this out at the start of the next show as well. Emma is doing a sponsored walk in London. It's actually a marathon with her family in order to raise money for Abigail's Footsteps, the charity that we really support on the channel. For those who aren't aware, they're a baby loss charity, and we lost our baby full term, blimey, 6 years ago now. So we do what we can for that charity, who are amazing, and fingers crossed we can raise enough money to provide a cold cot which provide invaluable time for people who've lost babies. So if you are feeling like you wish to be very generous, then I will put up a link somewhere for Emma's fundraising page, and Abigail's make extremely good use of that money, not just in our area, but they provide like support for counselling, for midwives, information and things for midwives as well, to help families that are going through such a shocking situation. So, yeah, thank you if you choose to do that. I'm not sure what else we've got to say really at the moment. I'm not going to make any big statements because trying to get a hold of people and trying to get things done is not always easy. I'm working on some more author chats, but it's not always easy to, as I say, to get those in nowadays. It's the landscape's changed a little bit, and even just getting hold of people has changed a little bit as well, where people have come off many of the socials where I had links to them, and it's then a case of sending emails that are going through filters or through admin and what have you, and then trying to make the time as well. So we are working on those kind of things. I'm not sure there's a huge amount more to say, so I won't bang on. In fact, I'll just leave it there, I think. So you have been listening to The Imperial Truth. All the music in this episode is created by Kevin MacLeod. Truth of Legend, Mechanolith, Five Armies, Curse of the Scarab, Hero Theme, and Dark Star can all be found at incompetech.com and licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 license. More information can be found on this by visiting theimperialtruth.com.